Hello, Topical, and welcome back to your favorite programming that you can listen to when you're at work, when you're on the way to school, when you're picking up your kids, or heck, listen to it while you're petting your dog. That's something fun that people do, right? Yeah, okay. So I'm very happy to come to you today. I was worried because this week I originally scheduled 4 podcasts, and I thought it was going to be hell week for podcasting or something for me. And I've had literally 5 people cancel on me to come on, so yeah, that's no fun. I have 2 of them rescheduled for next week, so you can look forward to those when they eventually come out. But I'm very happy with what I have to present to you today. So, any longtime listeners or people who are like me and just go back to the beginning of the podcast to listen to episodes will remember that about 4 months ago, I put up a podcast called SpongeBob Review Part 1 or something along those lines with Bailey, and I didn't think it would take 4 months for us to get to part 2, but here we are today, and we're back to finish reviewing the SpongeBob series as best we can, at the very least getting through the end of Season 3, which is when, all the good SpongeBobs really died, unfortunately.
True that.
Yeah, and you know what, we're really excited to continue talking about this, because some of our favorite episodes are going to come in this discussion. So,
it's probably very likely true.
yeah, so are you excited, Bailey?
Oh yes, I'm so pumped.
Okay, well, I guess we'll get right into things.
So we need to figure out where we left off.
Yes, so I actually listened to the last 5 minutes of the previous podcast, as you all probably should, frankly, before starting this, and apparently we left off exactly halfway through the second season. So we finished with I'm Your Biggest Fanatic, the one that, no, that was a different one that we couldn't remember at all. This was the one with Kevin the Cucumber. So that means that we're going to be starting with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy Free. So that's going to be a fun one. So I guess I'll start with the synopses. For the most part, I think what we're going to do is we're going to alternate with who gives the general summary. I'll take A's for now, you take B's for now, and if there's one that we just don't remember, we can throw it to the other guy. So in Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy Free, SpongeBob and Patrick are continuing their pursuits of their favorite superheroes. That in this one, like it's pretty interesting because you get to meet Man Ray, and he's a really interesting villain within that whole Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy arc. Before you see the Dirty Bubble, and before that you see Old Age as the villains that they're really combating. But Man Ray, he looks more like a stereotypical villain. He's got like a cool mask on. He's like all decked out in red, and like he really seems like a bad guy. And like it starts off with him being imprisoned within the man cave. No, not the man cave. The Mermalayer. Why did I say the man cave? So yeah, he's in the Mermalayer, and he's trapped in tartar sauce, and like he's a big object of fascination for SpongeBob and Patrick as soon as they go in, because they can't touch any of the super secret gadgets. So immediately, of course, Patrick unfreezes Man Ray, and when Man Ray tries to escape, the Tickle Belt is introduced that's wrapped around his waist, and as you would expect, SpongeBob and Patrick have a button on them that tickles Man Ray whenever he is acting out or whatever. So they abuse that power a bit and use it to try and reform him, to make him a better person. So the episode goes through a bunch of hilarious gags where SpongeBob and Patrick are trying to teach him a bunch of lessons, with SpongeBob being somewhat successful, and then Patrick just ruining everything by being a terrible teacher or hurting Man Ray or whatever. So that's how that goes. Eventually, SpongeBob and Patrick take off the tickle belt when Man Ray uses the P word, not peanuts, thankfully. And Man Ray is unleashed on the city, and, well, I'll let you take it from there. Or not. So he's robbing a bank, and it's a pretty stereotypical cartoon ending. Like, he still feels the tickle belt. He's laughing the entire time. None of the bank tellers take him seriously because he's just laughing the entire time. He's like, "No, I'm trying to steal your bank," and then he just starts laughing again, and eventually he just walks out, and he says he gives up on the life of villainy, and that's really where the episode ends.
Yeah, that is where it ends. Let's see.
So what was your favorite joke from this episode?
Oh, easily. And arguably like a top 10 joke in the entire show is Patrick's lesson at an attempt of like what would you call it? Being honest and having integrity, and so he the wallet gag.
Yeah, so like it's a stereotypical moral question where if some stranger drops their wallet, do you pick it up and give it back to them, or do you take it for yourself? And Henry keeps trying to give it back to Patrick, and Patrick's like, "No, it's not my wallet."
That's worth a YouTube search.
Yeah, definitely.
It's classic.
That was a really good one. And then there's the the thing with Patrick trying to carry the heavy box, and he keeps dropping it on Man Ray's foot. That's a pretty good one as well.
Ah, yes, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and yeah, I really enjoy this episode. I think it's the best Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy one so far. Personally, I'll take episode 6 over any of them, but so far at least, this is a pretty good one.
But we'll get there when we get there.
Yes. And thankfully, we don't see too much of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy, who are kind of hit and miss within the series. All right.
Do you think Man Ray is based off of like a Darth Vader stereotype with the mask and everything?
Not really. I think villains have always had masks, but it's a worthy comparison. All right.
I'm trying to think of what he could be based off of. All right, never mind.
Yeah. Okay. So this one's interesting. Now we have pressure.
Oh, this wiki says squirrel jokes.
Oh, it does. Dang it! In case you guys missed, yeah, it is squirrel jokes. In case you guys missed last time, us mixing up the order of the episodes, you get more of that this time. All right. So how would you describe squirrel jokes?
Would you like me to? Okay, squirrel jokes in short. Also, like Ryan knows these episodes better than I do, though I have seen them. It's just been a long time.
Yeah.
But so my explanation might be a hair shorter. But squirrel jokes is basically the Krusty Krab opens up basically an open mic night, like a comedy club, for in order for Mr. Krabs to acquire more currency, make more money. And so I don't know. Do we see various comics come on the stage, or is it just SpongeBob?
Yeah. I remember you have. It's not Krusty the clown, but it's like some clown guy that comes on and like warms up the audience for SpongeBob, and
yeah, that's right. So basically, it's just SpongeBob making money. So basically, SpongeBob is not funny at all. Except when he tells like a squirrel joke, which is basically equivalent to a racist joke in rodent culture. And so he's just basically insulting squirrels for their stupidity and that they breathe air and that they're clumsy and incompetent. And this offends Sandy, who is one of SpongeBob's very close friends.
Oh, don't forget stupid. Don't forget stupid.
Oh yes, they're stupid. Squirrels are stupid in real life. Everybody, don't approach a wild squirrel.
Yeah.
So yes, this offends Sandy, and because SpongeBob is being basically racist, and that could just destroy their friendship. So SpongeBob's conflicted whether to win the approval of the crowd or of his friend and not hurt her feelings. But he does continue to do squirrel jokes on stage, and eventually Sandy has enough. And Sandy punches SpongeBob in a very brutal and graphic way. And then he just stops doing squirrel jokes, I believe.
Oh, that's not how I remember it, actually. I think Sandy ended up inviting SpongeBob over under the guise that she finally understood the humor behind it and wanted, and maybe that was originally she punched him, but like she invited him over to her treat him, and then she just started.
No, yeah, that's the graphic one. Well, she acts incredibly stupid on purpose.
Oh, okay.
Like that wasn't. She didn't accept it. She was just like really trying to rub it in, and then she almost made like sponge jokes. That sponges need a lot of water, so she just stuffs a hose down his throat and makes him fill the entirety of the tree dome.
Yes, and that's obvious. Luckily, they don't make it too graphic compared to like some of the later Squidward tentacle porn stuff. But yeah, like that was interesting certainly, and it seemed like SpongeBob kind of stopped after that.
I believe she stopped after that.
Yeah. So this episode was pretty interesting. I like the whole clown gag at the beginning and like SpongeBob trying to come up with a bunch of jokes, and he's like, "Hey, how about that airline food?" And then he's like, "Hey, what about those forks?" So that was definitely interesting. And at the end, he just starts making fun of everybody because it's fine to make racist jokes as long as you do it at everyone's expense.
Yeah, that's how it ends. Because he goes from making squirrel jokes to just insulting everyone in the audience,
Yeah,
and then everyone starts laughing.
yeah,
And
like
then he's like, "Good night, everybody," and he gets roses torn out of him. Yeah, I remember now.
yeah. I always mix
Yep.
this episode up with crap. I just queued up the name of it. Now I forget it
The
again.
the talent show
Yeah, the
episode.
culture shock episode. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I probably prefer that episode ultimately, but yeah,
Did we cover Culture Shock already?
yeah, season 1.
Yeah.
So yeah, this episode was pretty interesting. It's definitely interesting seeing like the life of a stand-up comedian and like should stand-up comedians be able to make whatever jokes they want and like is there some morality in how they
Well,
do it?
they definitely do in
Yeah,
this day and age.
and it kind of continues the trend of the writers writing about writing, which is always interesting because it's kind of meta. Like, oh, Steven Hillenberg's writing about his own job. I wonder what he thinks about it, and like just analyzing it through that.
Yeah.
So that would be squirrel jokes. Okay, so now I got to think about how to describe pressure. So let me look at the wiki to see how this episode starts because I remember everything but the
I
beginning.
really don't. I don't remember this.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. So like Sandy and SpongeBob start off the episode. Apparently it's Sandy again. So they're sitting on a beach or whatever, I guess the sand, just relaxing and like they're talking about life and whatever. And then they start getting competitive, and Sandy's like, "Oh, I could beat you at anything." And SpongeBob's like, "Hey, what about rock climbing?" So they go rock climbing, and SpongeBob loses obviously because he's a wimp or whatever. And then SpongeBob's like, "Oh, what about I forget what the next thing is, but like he beats her at that, and then like they take it to the Krusty Krab, and then he just gets the whole gang involved. It's like goes to like a Krabby Patty eating contest, and she loses because she's wearing a helmet, and then to Patrick, as you would expect, and then she makes him try and go on land because they're sea creatures, they can't go on land, and that invokes one of the most interesting scenes in the entire series where SpongeBob, Mr. Krabs, Squidward, and Patrick, even Squidward got on the fun here, they all want to go and prove sea creatures are the best. So
it's this episode.
yeah, so like they're all going up to the island, and like it's a really funny thing because like it's just like a almost the stairway to heaven thing where like they're just walking up, and then like right above them you can see the ocean surface, and then like they're all debating like who's gonna go first, and then eventually they take that final step, and they come out as live action animals representing themselves. So like SpongeBob's actually a sponge, Mr. Krabs is like an actual crab, and then like Squidward. Well, Squidward's probably one of the most interesting. He doesn't even look like an octopus. He looks like an octopus with a giant nose stuffed on its face. And then obviously Patrick is just the same one that he was in the Suds episode. And that's interesting. They dance around for a little while, and then eventually they get attacked by seagulls. Sandy has to save them, and yeah.
It's a very different style of animation.
Yeah, are you a fan
It's
of?
literally just puppets. Well, I'm a fan of the comedic effect that it brought.
Yeah, me too. And I think there was one.
It was literally just stuffed. Like a fake crab or a stuffed crab and a stuffed starfish.
Oh,
a
okay.
taxidermied starfish just bouncing around.
A taxidermied starfish?
Like a real starfish.
Yeah, I don't think
Just
you.
dead.
I don't. Oh, okay. You just mean dead. I was gonna say I don't think you have to stuff
I guess
those.
I guess they don't. Yeah, I guess that's not really.
Yeah, it'd be kind of difficult. But one of my favorite gags from this episode is the whole pickle jar thing, where Sandy has to try and breathe underwater for a while, and then like Mr. Krabs and Squidward and Patrick, like they're all taunting her because she can't breathe underwater, and they're like, Sandy, do this. And then Mr. Krabs is like, breathe in the water. It's free. And that was pretty funny. And then eventually she just puts on a pickle jar, and yeah, that's her shame.
Yeah, before she suffocates.
Yes. That was kind of dark, honestly.
It was kind of mean. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty bad. Isn't there like a zoom in of her lungs and one of them like snaps off?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was a strong choice.
It's like, oh gosh.
Yeah, so
makes your chest hurt.
Yeah, oh yeah, I feel bad for anyone with asthma after that. Poor Bichon.
Oh gosh, Bichon.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so that was pressure. So now we have the smoking peanut. Hopefully, no one in our grade is trying to smoke that.
Jesus. I don't know. All right, this is probably one of the. Miss Blue, would you call it like one of the worst episodes of season two?
I don't know if I would. I didn't think it was terrible, honestly.
Well, it might not be terrible,
I
but
mean,
it's just
I
towards the
don't like it.
bottom.
I don't like it that much. I think it's a pretty good character building episode, honestly.
Hmm.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll get into a discussion about this after we have a better idea of what really happens in it.
All right, so basically, it's in Bikini Bottom. It's I believe it's free day,
Yes.
which means it's like you'll get free foods and free drinks and stuff, and then you'll see Mr. Krabs being a kleptomaniac and just stealing things because they're free. Like, and I mean anything. I'm pretty sure he like steals wallets and like a lamp and
Yeah.
a light post. Pretty sure he stole a light post.
Yeah, I think so.
And so, meanwhile, this is all taking place at the like the Bikini Bottom equivalent of SeaWorld.
Yeah,
There's
which is awkward.
oysters. Where SpongeBob and Patrick go to the Oyster Stadium, which is home of Clamu, ripoff of Shamu,
Yeah.
the giant clam, which is a real species. It's quite big.
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
Yes, giant clams they're quite huge. So basically, they look at it, no one's in there, and it's sound asleep, and Patrick decides to wake it up by throwing a peanut. The peanut pokes it, wakes it up, and then the thing starts screaming, and it's so loud, I'm pretty sure like all of Bikini Bottom can hear it. And so everyone's like taken aback, and SpongeBob and Patrick feel guilty. More SpongeBob than Patrick, because Patrick's just really stupid. Eventually, like this is like a police investigation and everything. And eventually, the police confront SpongeBob and Patrick.
Well, it's Detective Patrick that actually is really big in the investigation.
Oh dang, that's true. That's true. Patrick decides to investigate. I don't know. I don't think he really finds much of anything.
No, he just makes SpongeBob feel uncomfortable, and SpongeBob thinks
Yes.
he's super close to catching on to him, and then it turns out that Patrick thinks that he was the culprit the whole time.
Mhm. Eventually, I do think policemen show up. Policemen do show up, and
Yes.
they question SpongeBob and Patrick.
Well, I think they come to arrest Patrick after Patrick turned himself in.
Oh yeah, I think that Patrick is seen with a bag of peanuts that he had earlier, and I think he's arrested. He's chained in Clamu Stadium. People throw peanuts at him.
Yeah, he just starts eating the peanuts.
SpongeBob's like, "Stop! This is wrong," and whatever. I don't know. He does some good guy rant, and then I forgot, a policeman or someone is like, "Look." Or I found this, and it's like the pearl. It's the pearl of Clamu, and it's actually an egg, not a pearl. And then the thing hatches out of it. Not the thing. That'd be horrifying. Like the monster. Okay.
Yeah.
Its offspring. It somehow asexually reproduced and brought an offspring, and then it's basically just stops wailing, and then that's it. And it's found that Mr. Krabs stole the egg. Because he said it was free day.
Yeah.
And they got pegged with peanuts. Yeah.
Yeah,
so don't be greedy.
Yeah, hopefully Mr. Krabs isn't allergic to peanuts like us, but yeah. So this is a pretty interesting episode. What I like about it most is the whole Patrick investigation, because I know you really picked up like Patrick's role in this, but really it's like Patrick is just like a bystander. Ultimately, SpongeBob throws the peanut. Patrick doesn't even realize it. He's just like, oh, what a ripoff, and like he goes home. He starts this investigation. He's on to SpongeBob the entire time. And like it's a lot better than the Hall Monitor episode where you really see SpongeBob taking on a 40 role. Patrick really looks almost natural in it, being like the bumbling not reporter, just enforcer. And like he's going around, he's getting closer and closer to figuring out that SpongeBob actually did it. And of course, at the very last second, like he gets it completely wrong, and then he gets the whole setup where he gets the handcuffs, he gets the I forget what you call it, like that Massachusetts thing where like you have like your arms are like splayed out and like you have the big wooden thing put around your back, and I forget what that's called, but you know, like you guys probably know what I'm talking about. That thing, like where you're hunched over and you're like, oh, look at me, I'm an old time criminal or whatever.
Yeah, I forgot. Oh, what's that called? I don't remember.
Yeah, so that thing.
I thought you were talking about the other thing where it's like something encordated and you're tied, your limbs are tied.
No, not that thing. That's a lot more gruesome. That'd also be interesting because he's a starfish, but yeah, no, they didn't do that.
His limbs would just grow back.
Yeah, good point. they don't really explore that much in the show. But yeah, that's getting a bit sidetracked. So what I think is good about this episode, I think it builds Patrick's character a lot, and yeah, like I bet a lot of you were expecting. Oh, you're going to talk about how SpongeBob's character is built for it. Well, not really, because like that kind of happens in every episode, to be honest. Like SpongeBob learns some lesson, but you don't see it that much in the other characters, and that makes it a lot more important when, say, Squidward learns a lesson, or Patrick does, or Sandy does, or Mr. Krabs does. And like I feel like Patrick really grows as a character. He takes on this whole new angle where he is justice, and he's trying to figure out who hurt Moo, and like he fails obviously because he's a bumbling idiot, and
And
yeah, like I really respect that, and I like the fact that they went for a more not heavy topic, but like one that like it's more important than like the average topic where like Squidward is getting harassed by SpongeBob and Patrick, or like they're at the Krusty Krab. Like this feels like the stereotypical sitcom, not sitcom, like a I don't know, like a TV show trope, or not trope, even like just an event you would see in like a TV show where like the characters are going through it. And I like that because SpongeBob doesn't do it that often, and that's a good thing. But you still have to sprinkle it in occasionally. So why don't you like this episode?
I, watching it as a kid, I probably watched it from ages like 6 to 12. Probably seen it on television like 9 or 10 times, and I guess I probably stuck around because I enjoyed SpongeBob, and I always like catching up on old episodes, recapping stuff I haven't seen. But I don't know, I just didn't find it nearly as funny as other episodes, especially in this season, which is arguably the best one.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's not a particularly
I mean,
funny episode.
yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I just find SpongeBob, the best moments of SpongeBob are the most humorous ones because you don't find really like deep messages in a cartoon like this. It's for the humor.
Yeah, I can relate to that, and that's going to come up later in this discussion where I make the case for why my favorite episode is the best episode over the one that I know you're going to choose for its deeper meaning. So yeah, that's the smoking peanut. All right, what do we?
Yeah, I mean, it just wasn't too funny, and I also found the cry of the claim really annoying.
Yeah, I almost wonder if that was intentional, but no, I understand what you mean. All right, so sooner than I expected, actually, comes my favorite episode, Shanghai. So this may be a controversial pick for a lot of people because I looked through some top 10 lists before recording this, and apparently it's not in a lot of people's top 10s. Well, I think that's a real
What?
shame because this is a really good episode.
That is a real shame. It's in my top 10 for sure.
Yeah, and at the top of mine. But I think this is hands down the strongest episode in terms of comedy. I don't think that's an arguable thing. The entire episode is just punchline to punchline to punchline to punchline to punchline. It brings in one of the most interesting characters in the entire series, the Flying Dutchman. And like the entire time, the Flying Dutchman's just getting harassed by SpongeBob and Patrick. SpongeBob and Patrick are going through gags. They bring in Squidward. Squidward has a bunch of one-liners. They bring in Gary. Gary has a couple one-liners at the beginning. And like just the entire plot line is so ridiculous. And they even bring in Patchy the Pirate at one point to spice things up a bit. But do you count Patchy, like the Patchy the Pirate segments as part of episodes?
Yeah, it is. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, definitely.
Okay, well then, yeah, Patchy the Pirate also adds to it, and there are a lot of great elements to this episode, and I'll get into that more. But first, I want to give a quick plot summary here. So obviously, you start off Patchy, yada yada yada. So that's there, but it starts off with SpongeBob. He's wakes up in the morning. He goes downstairs. He's getting his cereal. Cereal box is empty. They do like a thing where like he hits the cereal box, and some dust comes out, and then lo and behold, an anchor strikes his house. Well, you certainly didn't expect that. So neither did Squidward, because SpongeBob is screaming and running around the yard. And he's like, "The sky had a baby," like as if he's like Chicken Little or something. So then Squidward comes out. He makes fun of him. The anchor crashes into his house now. So
Oh yeah, keep in mind this is not an anchor the size of SpongeBob. This is an anchor the size of Squidward's home.
yes, and like
The anchor hits hits the pineapple, and then Scooter makes one liner, and you just see the anchor just swing directly into his house.
yep. And then he's like, "Oh, look at what you've done and whatever," and that immediately involves him in the story. Patrick comes out because he wants to see that the sky had a baby. So naturally, the only thing that you can do when an anchor strikes your house is climb up its rope. So that's what they do, and after a few time cards that everyone loves so much, they're like, "Are we there yet?" or whatever. And
Pretty sure
eventually,
it's.
I'm sorry.
Or was it one? Was that the one that said one eternity later?
No clue, honestly. But yeah, like they're climbing up the rope. Eventually, they make it up to the Flying Dutchman's ship, and like that's another thing I really like about this episode is the pacing. It's super fast. Like you go through each beat very quickly. So like they're on the Flying Dutchman's ship. Like it looks super. It's super creepy. You've never been on the Flying Dutchman's ship before in the series, so they really big it up in terms of like how ghostly it's supposed to look, if not scary, and like Squidward at one point picks up like a dirty pair of underwear. He's like, "Oh, this place is disgusting." So, when you end up on a crazy ghost ship, there's only one thing you can do. You knock on the captain's quarters and you go greet the captain. So that's what SpongeBob and Patrick do. They ring the bell, and eventually the Flying Dutchman comes out, and they don't believe it's the real Flying Dutchman because of how he introduces himself. SpongeBob doesn't feel like it's enough of a ah, ooh, ah, when he's announcing himself. So, it's not the real Flying Dutchman until he says, "I am the Flying Dutchman," and then, it's the Flying Dutchman. So they get introduced to him. Squidward makes fun of him a bunch. And then, in one of the more inappropriate things that happens in the series, aside from some of those sneaky adult jokes that you showed me that got worked in some episodes, they introduce the Fly of Despair. So it is literally a zipper that the Flying Dutchman unzips, and he throws Squidward into it. And yeah, you can picture that. You can look it
Pretty
up on
horrifying.
YouTube. It's kind of creepy when you
It is.
first see it.
It's nice art direction though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty hard to animate, and they did a good job for whatever year it was, 2001, 2002.
Yeah, and when you start thinking about it, it's just like, wow, they really went there. So
And
yeah, that's that first part of this
also,
episode. Yeah.
also, I looked up the time card. It said they basically climbed it, and it said, "Are you there yet?" And then it said, "A few inches later."
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
It's classic.
Yes,
I love the irony.
that was one of the better time cards in the series. And yeah, now we just have SpongeBob and Patrick on the ghost ship. So whenever the Flying Dutchman gets a new person on his ship, he pulls out his rule book. He looks at the rules and he says, "Okay, so whenever I get a new person on my ship, they become part of my crew forever." And then he closes the book and then he opens it up again. He's like, "Ever," and oh wait, Squidward was here because he made like a snide comment about like, "Do we get business cards?" And like he gets shot at by like a bunch of fire that comes out of the Flying Dutchman's nose. So I guess he gets sent down later, but whatever. You don't have to know the exact plot. So they go through a couple gags of SpongeBob and Patrick trying to help him. First, they start by cleaning up the boat, and that goes about as well as you could expect. Then they have to go on a haunting. First, it starts with SpongeBob trying to navigate the ship, and he does a horrible job of it. He navigates it right through a giant ravine, and you get the famous gag of keep going, keep going, keep going, and stop. And like then they give the pivotal line of, "Oh, we'll buff out those scratches," and of course like the ship has basically no.
It's literally,
It's just a couple of wood planks left.
and it's also funny because it's like a ship.
Yeah, like it shouldn't actually be material. So they go on their haunting. The Flying Dutchman scares them. The SpongeBob and Patrick try and scare them and just entertain them, and they do that a couple times. First they don't get the cue, and then like they just get called a bunch of dorks. And then the Flying Dutchman says, "No, but they're my dorks." And then like they do a whole ice skating routine at one point. I forget where that comes from, but that was really interesting.
Gosh.
And then one of my favorite parts of the episode. So they go back to the captain's quarters, and SpongeBob and Patrick think they're getting a promotion. And there was a really funny line about like them getting something specific. I completely forget what it was, but I'll look it up later. But so they're in the hindquarters, they're sitting on the bench, and the Flying Dutchman comes in, and he says he's going to eat them because he doesn't like working with them anymore, and he can't send them back to the real world. So SpongeBob and Patrick realize they have to escape or get the sock that they heard him talking about through his porthole, I guess. So they go on a little adventure through the perfume department because they have to take a roundabout. And that's a really funny scene where they're just running through the perfume department, and as any man can attest, running through the perfume department is a nauseating and intoxicating experience that you must hold your breath through. So they do the best job of that they
And
can.
it's a big fourth wall break. Definitely, it's not an animated perfume department. It's like running through like a Macy's perfume section.
Ah,
It's like
yeah.
I mean, it's like real people and real. There's like real hands just spraying them with perfume.
Yeah, and then there's a really funny part where Patrick has like a gas mask on, and they just take the gas mask on and spray him
Oh
anyways.
yeah, they rip it off, spray it, and put it back on.
Yeah, and then they eventually get through, and like SpongeBob and Patrick in another fourth wall break, they're like, "I hate doing that," and Patrick's like, "Yeah, me too." Yeah, it's like
Another
any.
we made.
Yeah, that was great. And like I'm sure.
How many times have they gone through the perfume before?
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point. But yeah, they eventually get into the room. They steal the sock. The Flying Dutchman is like desperate to get it back because apparently he can't eat
Oh
without the
yeah,
sock. And then like Patrick, oh yeah, Squidward came, but no, Squidward comes back later. And then Patrick's like, "Ooh, we have reached an impasse," in like one of his smart moments.
it's so stupid.
And then the Flying Dutchman's like, "Pick one right." Okay, so how about this? How about I give you 3 wishes? And they can go through like a whole who's on second routine where Patrick's like, "No, I want 4. Yeah, I want 5." And then the Flying Dutchman's like, 4. And then Patrick's like, "3 wishes, take it or leave it." Yeah, and like obviously you're just back at the start.
It's like okay.
Yeah, okay, you have 3 wishes, and
Pretty sure
then
the Flying Dutchman like slaps his face at that.
yeah, because
Hits
like
himself in the
he's
face.
just done with this stuff. So yeah, like you get that, and then it goes through the standard routine of like them saying "wish" on accident, and the Flying Dutchman being cheeky and being like, "Oh, that was your wish." So like they start with, "Oh, I wish Squidward was here to see this," and it cuts to a Squidward finally exiting the Fly of Despair, which must have seemed endless to him. He ends up on his bed, and he's like, "Whew, I'm glad that's over," and he's teleported back to the ghost ship.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. And then like they do like something where they wish they knew it like 5 minutes earlier or something, and then like it shows a clock and going back 5 minutes. So they only have one.
Oh yeah. And then they debate who gets the last wish, and Squidward says it should be him because uh
Because they dragged him back
he
into
was in the
this mess.
Fly of Despair and he didn't get a wish yet. And then what Dutchman plays Eeny Meeny Miny Mo, and it's SpongeBob who gets picked.
Yeah, and like they cut to and like just a picture of them being completely apathetic to it, and so that was really funny. And then like Squidward tries to make SpongeBob take the wish super seriously, and he actually does. He makes the Flying Dutchman a vegetarian, but in like an ending that I'm not really happy with, to be honest. Like they uh, cut to them all being transformed into fruit, and the Flying Dutchman being like, "What? I don't get a wish?" You know, like he's like, "Fruit is healthy too," or something. And then like
Yeah, and then so that implies they were just
yeah, so like they're all in a blender, and
slaughtered
he's getting ready to eat them, and like then they just start
and
running
blend
off.
them up. Yeah.
And then, like in almost like a psychedelic ending, they start running off in the blender. The Flying Dutchman is chasing him in his vegan attire. We all know those vegans. You know the vegan attire, and
Mm-hmm.
like that's a thing. And he's chasing around them around like some hippie mobile, and like they cut to like a background of like the it looks like really psychedelic. It's like a watercolor thing with all the colors sloshing around. Then you cut back to Patchy, and Patchy's doing his thing, trying to pick up the ladies and whatever. And eventually you get like I think a song that plays, and then yeah, that's pretty much the entire episode summarized and almost the entire run length of it. So what do you think about this episode?
It's very good.
Yep.
And there's just like a lot of gags you remember and a lot of gags you forget because there's that many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's
This is the episode where they say you're good, you're good.
Yep. Yeah, that was what I was
I
talking
mean
about. Yeah.
that's a classic just because of the Dutchman's like facial expression when he does that. It's just funny.
Yeah, and he's a really underused character in the series.
He's pretty dynamic. He can be a good guy, but he's like an anti-hero almost.
Yeah, he's someone everyone can relate to.
Because one episode he's like helping SpongeBob tie his shoe, and then the other episode he's like stealing people's souls.
Yeah. So like he really can go both ways, and he has a lot of depth, honestly. And yeah, you just don't see him a lot.
Yeah,
All right, so that's Shanghai. And
that's Shanghai. I'm trying to think what was the good. There was one good gag I was thinking about.
Hmm. Well,
Uh,
maybe it'll come
I
back to
don't
you.
remember it.
Okay.
I don't remember it. Not worth it. I think we might have to shorten descriptions for the sake of time.
Yeah, to be honest, we gotta at least make it to the end of season 3. So, okay.
Yeah.
Next we have Gary takes a bath. So this one's interesting.
All right. I liked this one as a kid, but getting older kind of grew old. Maybe I watched it too many times. Basically, you remember how Gary got dirty?
No.
Me neither.
Great. Okay. Well, he got dirty.
Let me pull up. I got a synopsis right here. Okay, so all this is this it's about Gary, a snail in the SpongeBob universe is the equivalent of a cat, and it even says meow. And considering cats hate water, they would hate baths. And SpongeBob tells Gary it's bath time, and he says no. This is also it's a very short episode. It's
Yeah,
only
I just noticed that. And
it's
that
six and a half minutes because I'm pretty sure Shanghai is a little longer.
yeah, because of the patchy segments.
That's right. Okay, so this is just SpongeBob using antics and tricks to try to get Gary into the bath. He basically fails multiple times because one, Gary is sticky and will just stick to objects. We see that as a running gag. We see him trying to use toys, like just bait, like incentives. He tries to assault Gary's mind with subliminal messages.
Yeah, that was great.
I don't. Oh, what was that? What was the message?
I don't remember what the specific message was, but I remember how it ends.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, there was like a woman's face that was cross-eyed.
Oh, wait, I remember now. So, like, he's like, I will reach into the deepest parts of your mind. And, like, he's trying to eject subliminal messages. So, like,
Yeah.
it does, like, it cuts to, like, a picture of running water, like, out of a faucet. And then, like, a bathtub. And then this bizarre woman for some reason.
It's so gross.
Like, Crazy Ann or
And
whatever.
SpongeBob was creeped out. So, and the yeah, blah, antics. We'll learn the specifics later. And then basically, Gary climbs up a tree that is surrounded by mud. And so SpongeBob takes a ladder and tries to get Gary, and then Gary basically knocks the ladder down. SpongeBob falls into the mud, ironically. And then at the end, we see Gary giving SpongeBob a bath.
Yep.
So basically, it's just a filler episode, nothing special.
Yeah, and they really didn't have much of a choice. They had to make one short, so they had to just create a plot that they can run through really quickly.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, this episode isn't that memorable, to be honest, but it's
The
SpongeBob.
one good gag is like well, SpongeBob runs in with a bomb strapped to his chest.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And he says, "Gary, there's a bomb strapped to my chest, and it won't. It's gonna go off unless you get in the bath."
Oh wait,
and then, like SpongeBob actually blows up.
Yeah, he's just like, oh dang it,
because it was actually like a real bomb, and that's used in memes these days that are kind of offensive. But we're not going to get into that.
Yeah, and I forgot about one joke that we completely missed. So there's the part where SpongeBob is giving him the bars of soap, and then he winks at Gary, and he's like, "Don't drop them," because like the whole jail thing, where like don't drop the soap in the jail or whatever.
Yeah, that's a classic. Like that's the producers trying to slip in some jokes and have a laugh.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Very good. He winks too. He does everything. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Okay. So the next episode would be Welcome to the Chum Bucket, and this is another one of those character developing episodes for SpongeBob, and also just introducing you more to the character of Plankton. So to just summarize the plot pretty quickly, Plankton basically is trying to get more employees because nobody works for him, and Karen loves to make fun of him for that. Actually, let me glance through this real quick to make sure I'm thinking of the right episode, because there are so many episodes where Plankton is trying to steal SpongeBob or whatever. Yeah, so this is the one I think it is. So somehow he gets SpongeBob to come into his restaurant, and oh, that's right. So Mr. Krabs and Plankton are apparently played cards like the night before. Like it starts with a funny gag of like a SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs walking out of the restaurant, and they're like, "Oh yeah, every night I go and play Plankton at cards, and I never lose." And like they just go off laughing, and then Mr. Krabs comes back crying the next morning. He's like, "I lost. I bet everything," and like he bet SpongeBob apparently. So now SpongeBob has to go work for Plankton, and obviously Plankton realizes that the only way to get SpongeBob to really work with him is to be super compassionate to him. So he's really nice to him. He makes the chum bucket look exactly like the Krusty Krab, and and when it finally looks like SpongeBob is about to make a Krabby Patty for him, he becomes basically a selfish kid, and he wants more and more and more, and he wants like foot massages, and he wants like a personal robot butler, and like he wants like a milkshake or whatever.
And this episode wasn't really great.
Yeah, the second half lost me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I mean, just for me, I don't know about you. I don't like kids. I don't like the selfish thing. And that's not funny for me. I'm not like the kind of person that's gonna watch something like Curb Your Enthusiasm and I'll be like, ah ha ha, look how funny life is when it gets you down. No, like that's not me. I don't want to look at life when it gets me down. I want to put my blinders on and hide from it. So SpongeBob was a bit too real for me here. But yeah, like that's kind of this episode for me.
True. Yeah. I mean, well, it's not as good because it's not as funny.
Yes, yeah, they don't make much of an effort to make a lot of jokes. It's meant to be character developing, and I'm not gonna say it fails at that, but it doesn't do as good of a job as some of these other ones.
It shows Plankton is like human too, or what do animal too.
Yes,
he's not just evil all the time.
Okay, so now we have like a run of like some awesome episodes here for like something like oh my god, like to the end of the season it looks like.
It's a heck of a run. All right, basically, what did Plankton just gave up and gave SpongeBob back to Mr. Krabs, right?
Yeah, he's like he's helpless. I can't do anything with him.
All right.
Okay, so Frankendoodle.
Ooh, my throat is bugging me. All right, I'm gonna try my best. Maybe I'll draw it.
Yeah.
Frankendoodle is a classic episode. All right, so basically, there's an artist in a boat. He's drawing portraits, and he drops his pencil into the water, and he just screams. He gets like so upset. He dropped his only pencil.
Yeah, he pulls like the Darth Vader no thing.
Yeah, so we see a hyper-realistic pencil sink to the ocean floor, and SpongeBob finds it, and he calls Patrick over, and he's like, "What's this?" And they think it's like a magic wand, because whatever they draw with it. I think it's a magic pencil.
Yes.
Magic. And whatever they draw to it, like, becomes self-aware and can move on its own, which is kind of creepy, low-key.
Yeah.
So they draw like a jellyfish and like, stuff like that, basic stuff, and then Patrick draws SpongeBob, and so they call it Doodle Bob, and the thing becomes self-aware and also has evil intentions. It like assaults Squidward at one point and stuff like that, and they're like, "Oh, you're really evil." So they erase him, but they left one arm, and then the arm manages to rebuild itself, and it tries to get back at SpongeBob by basically trying to erase SpongeBob with the magic pencil, because the eraser can erase anything in the real world from existence. So they just get in a big fight. Then SpongeBob realizes paper is its weakness, because it is a drawing after all, and that it'll stick to paper and it can't escape from it. So he eventually traps Doodle Bob in paper and then just slaps him in a book.
Yep.
And puts him on the wall.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summary of the plot of this episode. So some of my favorite gags from the episode are when initially, obviously the artist is awesome. Having the live action guy in there is just a lot of fun. I wonder if he's actually one of the writers for the show, to be honest.
Oh no, he's Plankton's voice actor.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so yeah, he's a pretty cool guy.
If you listen to the voice, if you ever watch the clip again, you can hear it.
Okay, yeah, I think I hear it now in my head, like the no, but yeah, that's super interesting. Okay, I didn't realize that. So yeah, he's a cool guy. One of my favorite gags is when SpongeBob and Patrick, they draw like the money on Squidward's doorstep, and like Squidward's like going out for a night on the town, and he's like, "Ooh, what's this?" Oh, that's right. They draw like some hair for Squidward or something. And they give it to Squidward. Squidward puts it on, and he feels super fancy now because he finally has hair and like he's not bald anymore. So like he's gets all dressed up. He's going to go out for a fancy night, and he sees some money on his doorstep. He reaches down to pick it up, and Squidward misses, and like SpongeBob and Patrick pull it out from under him. He falls. The hair falls off his head, and then he's pretty sad now because he's ugly or whatever. And that's a good moment for Squidward. You really get a sense for him. And then like another one of my favorite ones was the bowling thing, where Doodle Bob traps SpongeBob and Patrick in a not a hole. I forget how it goes exactly.
It's a pit.
Oh, okay.
It's a
So
hole. It's a hole. He draws a hole in the ground, and then they fall into it.
okay, yeah, and then like Patrick gets ready to come out, and like he looks like a bowling pin already without his arms. So Doodlebop sees him as a bowling pin. He rolls a strike as they call it, and then like he falls to the ground, and then he gets another strike because well, why not? So that was funny because they really played up the whole bowling thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is a really fun episode.
Where's the leak, man?
Yeah, that was great, and yeah, like a lot of these episodes now are trying to really develop SpongeBob's character, and like I felt like this was one of the strongest ones because it's not really doing it in a heavy-handed way. It's like in the background of the episode, and like you get it for little snippets, or like you see SpongeBob confronting like the fact that there can be only one and whatever, and like then
Yeah.
you obviously at the end you get the pretentious artist monologue, so that's fun. But yeah, this is a really interesting episode. And the next one, in a lot of ways, is even more interesting, especially if you're wondering what's in the box. So we have the secret box. And basically, the premise here, I'll just summarize it in like one sentence. Patrick has a box. SpongeBob wants to know what's in the box. Patrick doesn't want to let him know what's in the box. And SpongeBob will find out what's in the box no matter what the cost. So essentially, how it goes is SpongeBob sees Patrick with a box. He wants to know what's in the box, and like Patrick doesn't want him to see what's in the box because it's a secret box, as the title would imply. So like they just go through a bunch of gags of SpongeBob trying to steal the box. Like they start with him just asking nicely, as you do. Then it gets a bit more drastic, him trying to actually rob Patrick's house. Like they have a bunch of really funny gags where Patrick doesn't realize that he wants to see what's in the box, and there's a fantastic one. Like this is one of my favorite lines from the entire series, where SpongeBob asks a question, I forget what it was, and Patrick's like, "The inner workings of my mind are an enigma," and then it cuts to a picture of like a thought bubble and like just a milk carton, and then the milk carton spills. Like that was great. And the whole robbery scene is really fun because SpongeBob just keeps making noise whenever he takes any steps, and Patrick's a light sleeper, so he doesn't wake up. And naturally, when SpongeBob says, "Gee, I'm glad Patrick's a heavy sleeper," Patrick immediately wakes up. So SpongeBob can't steal the box, and yeah, the episode just goes from there. And like eventually, Patrick lies to SpongeBob and is like, "Oh, you know what's in the box? It's crap, I forget what it is. Let's see, what's in the box? Oh, it's nothing. No, it's a stupid piece of string. That's right." And it turns out by the end of the episode that it's like it's a secret compartment. It turns out. So when Patrick ends the episode by showing the audience what's in the box, it turns out it's an embarrassing picture of SpongeBob at that Christmas party. And as
Yes,
anyone,
that one Christmas party.
yeah, and as anyone who's ever worked in a workplace can relate, we all have embarrassing moments, and sometimes you drink a lot at a Christmas party, you get some embarrassing pictures taken of you, and amazingly,
Did you say if you drink a lot of Christmas party?
now you drink a lot at the Christmas party, and
Oh, I
they
thought you said,
amazingly
yeah.
don't get put on Instagram or Snapchat or whatever immediately. Then they just get held over you for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Also, if you Google picture in the secret box of SpongeBob, that you get a lot of fan art of what
yes,
people think it was. There's some pretty good fan art. It looks pretty realistic.
yeah. Safe search on people.
Oh no, you don't need a safe search, but
Oh, okay,
it's not that bad.
gotcha. I thought
The
you
worst
meant
one I saw,
like the deviant art.
someone interpreted it as SpongeBob kissing Gary,
Oh,
and there was like slime down his mouth. It was gross.
okay. Well, that's just creepy.
Besides the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, solid episode.
Yeah, and one of my favorite gags I forgot to mention was when Patrick eventually catches SpongeBob with the secret box in hand after the robbery. He's like, "SpongeBob, you know," and no, not SpongeBob. He doesn't realize it's SpongeBob, even though it's super obvious. He's like, "Do you really want to see my pillow fighting skills?" And like he crunches the pillow and it's like, and oh my god, obviously that gets SpongeBob to
I
confess.
forgot about that. Oh my, it's like a shotgun. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah,
and like
that's very funny.
obviously making
How
fun of
about
like a bunch of people from Texas shooting robbers or whatever.
yeah, how about the gag where every time he steps on top makes his like the loudest sound possible,
Yeah, that was great.
and Patrick was just asleep. But then he makes one tiny quiet move, and Patrick just jolts up.
Yeah, as you do.
Yes, it was a good episode. Good episode.
Yeah, so now you get the
Top
honors.
10. Top 10, I'd have to look. Ooh, gosh, Band Geeks.
Yeah, you get the honors of doing what most people would call the best episode in SpongeBob.
It's hard to argue. It's top 5. Again, I've never made a list, and I don't want to. That'd be a lot of stress, and I'd really have to watch, like the top 10 again, and then just rank them from there. Band Geeks is like, I believe it's the first introduction to Squilliam, is it not?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay, so you're gonna have to describe Squilliam Fancy Son to start
where
with.
do I even start? Squilliam is a squid, like Squidward. He's incredibly fancy, the same to like height and weight or whatever Squidward, but he always has a purple bathrobe on, and he has a thick, smooth, cleanly cut unibrow.
Yes.
And he talks like a posh dude, like a posh squid. I don't know how he got famous. I don't really remember it, nor do I care.
Yeah, and something the show really tries to play up is like the contrast between Squilliam and just
Yeah.
Squidward.
A cashier versus a millionaire.
Yeah, and how like Squilliam is everything that Squidward ever wanted to be, and like how Squilliam loves to rub that in his face. And
yeah, so basically, to start, Squidward gets a phone call. He's just watching like TV. Squilliam says his band can't perform at the Bubble Bowl, which is like Squidward's dream. And the Bubble Bowl is basically a huge football game set in the real world above surface, which is kind of weird, but we'll get to that. Squidward's in awe, and he's like, "Oh, that stinks." And well, Squilliam's like, "Do you have a band?" And Squidward's like, he doesn't want to look inferior, so he's like, "Yeah, I have a band. They're great." And then he's like, Squilliam's like, "Cool, you can do it." And then he's like, "Oh crap, I have to make a band." So he puts flyers all over to say try out for the band, and he basically puts everyone in, and they all suck.
yeah, and he puts these flyers everywhere. He puts them in Larry's
Like,
shower.
There's one in Miss. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. And it's everywhere. And so yeah, everyone shows up. Some good gags. They all meet in the. I don't even know I forgot where they met. It's just a huge theater. So they tried to play, and Squidward gives them advice, and Squidward's like, "What am I going to do? They all suck." And then the next night, I mean, they get the whole band gets in a huge fight, and Squidward basically he just gives up, and he's like, "Well, I don't have a band because y'all are like fighting each other." He walks out. SpongeBob's like, "We can't do this to him. He's working hard. He's trying to help us." And then so basically SpongeBob conducts the rehearsal, and eventually Squidward arrives at the Bubble Bowl with no one else, and then he sees Squilliam, and he's like, "Crap, I can't let him see me." But Squilliam does see him, and he's like, "Where's your band?" And Squidward says, "They all die."
Yeah.
And then Squilliam looks back and says, "Who's that?" And then his band's behind him, and Squidward's like, "Oh, that'd be my band," and he's scared. But they perform at the Bubble Bowl, and it's literally they're taken up to a surface level, like real world football game.
Yeah, I think it was the Super Bowl halftime show.
It's basically that's probably what it is. And they're like, these are some ugly looking fish because they're human beings.
Yeah,
it's funny. Then they, Squidward's really scared. He's like 1, 2, 3, 4, because he's really scared. And there's like a freaking awesome trumpet fanfare, and it's a song called "Sweet Victory." I forgot who it's by. That SpongeBob just dubs over, like he's actually singing it, and it's hilarious. Patrick's playing the drums with sunglasses. Mrs. Puff is shredding a piano guitar.
Yep.
And yeah, it's pretty hilarious, and it's great, and a lot of good gags in there. And Squilliam passes out, like literally has a heart attack from how awesome it was, and Squidward's like rocking out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it.
And it concludes with a climactic ending with Squidward jumping up into the air as you.
And there's a freeze frame, yeah, like an '80s. It's like an '80s movie ending.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we should go through some of the gags in this episode. I don't want to do the mayonnaise gag a disservice.
Fun fact: this was the last episode before 9/11.
Oh, well, that's a downer. Okay. Well, yep. Okay. Last episode before 9/11. Yeah. So.
Also, I'm going to say one more thing. Ironically, in the episode, there's footage of 2 people twirling batons so fast they fly into the air and they crash into a blimp.
Yes.
A little.
That was one of my favorite ones. Yeah.
Yes. All right. But that's yeah. Anyways.
Okay, so one of the biggest memes that's come out of this episode is Patrick when like they're all talking about like the instruments they're gonna play and like does anyone have any instrumental experience, and obviously no one raises their hand, and Squidward's like great, and then Patrick raises his hand. He's like, is mayonnaise an instrument? Like, no, obviously.
It's like one of the it's like
I'd say it's one of the most
it's such an
famous.
unexpected moment. You just like laugh.
Yeah, and right before that, like, not Mr. Krabs, Plankton is like, do instruments of torture count? Nobody ever remembers that one. It's just that is mayonnaise an instrument?
I have to watch it. I gotta watch that again. That's hilarious. It's so good. It's top five. Yeah, I love how Squidward walks in and then like literally everyone is saying blah 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 to each other.
Yeah, that was great.
And then so he's saying Patrick's like, is mayonnaise an instrument? He's like, no, Patrick, mayonnaise is not an instrument. He puts his hand back up. Squidward says, horseradish is not an instrument either. And Patrick puts his hand back down.
Yeah, and throughout the episode, there's a running gag of Patrick and Sandy getting in arguments, and like and like Sandy apparently like stuffs Patrick in a trombone at one point, and like
yes.
And like just a good cutaway on like the second to last practice. No, this was the last practice. This was the night before the big performance, where like Sandy picks up a trombone and Patrick like is running away screaming.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a great one. And
Plankton's harmonica solo.
Oh yeah, that was pretty good too.
It's Plankton sprinting back and forth, blowing individual notes into a harmonica.
Yeah.
It's just funny because a harmonica is made for chords, blowing like 5 or 6 notes at a time.
Yeah. How do they do that? Do they just do that by tonguing it?
What do you mean?
And like when you're playing a harmonica, how do you play the chords? Do you like
Well, no. You know how all the holes are next to each other, right?
Yeah.
Because the holes are so small, you can get like 4 or 5 in your mouth.
No, I know that, but like how?
All you do is blow.
But what if like you wanted to get like 2 that were on this side and like 2 that were on the other side? But you didn't want to get the one in the.
No, that's not how it works. The chords are already lined up.
Oh, okay, I see. Gotcha.
That's why you only hear certain chords on a harmonica unless it's in a different key.
Okay.
But yeah, it just depends on what side you blow on and how many notes you put near your mouth.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And what I think most people like about this episode the most is that it really is Squidward's moment in the spotlight. Throughout the series so far, you see Squidward as like a sympathetic person. Well, not really sympathetic. He's kind of a jerk to SpongeBob and Patrick, and
selfish.
Like, yes, and like you understand why SpongeBob and Patrick don't get along with him, and like you get the whole thing. Like you either sympathize with him or sympathize with SpongeBob and Patrick. It's not like
exactly. Squidward's the victim a lot of the times.
Yes, but
of his antics.
But just as often, he's the villain, and like he's the character that you most relate to in the show. So like he's someone that you want to succeed, and this is the episode for that to happen. Like you see all of Squidward's dreams and desires, and you see him eventually snatched from him by Squilliam. You see what looks like them being dashed after he gets his big chance on the last night before the performance, and then you ultimately see him succeed at the end of the episode, and that's a pretty powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have one question for you, though.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like the original performance better, or do you like the final countdown one better?
The final countdown?
Yeah, so there's a really famous dub where they take the final performance, and obviously they have Sweet Victory. Oh, you have to check it out, because I personally think it's a lot better than the Sweet Victory one.
Does it line up well?
Yeah, it lines up fantastically, and like obviously it doesn't work in the episode because it's not Sweet Victory. It's not the final countdown. Like that doesn't make any sense. But aside from that, it's way better in my opinion.
Interesting. I'll check that out later. I see how it could fit in, but I find Sweet Victory to be a better song.
All right, well we'll see what you think of that.
And I like how that dude's really rough voice is like put on SpongeBob's body. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And I love Patrick's expression when he's playing the drums, his mouth slightly open. It's classic. Yeah,
that was great.
The stinking forgot what they're called. They're like, but the drums are hexagons. It's like a really modern drums. It's classic. Really good episode. Definitely check that out.
Yeah, we could talk about this episode for hours, but we have a lot to get
Yep.
through, so we're gonna keep going. So, okay.
Yeah, we do.
So even more than Shanghai, I think the episode Graveyard Shift is tremendously underappreciated by fans. I
It
think that
is.
this one is always missed in like the just awesome series that is the season 2 of SpongeBob SquarePants. And this episode personally falls in my top 10. We'll probably eventually get to that if we have time. But yeah, like I really like this episode. It's just a bunch of gags. It's not really about the plot, and I think it works great. So, what in the limited plot that exists, like once again, I can summarize it in like one or two sentences. So, Mr. Krabs, he knows that the more time that you spend in business, the more money that you can make. And like after seeing Squidward turn away a customer because he was pointing down to the sign, he's like, "Look, the restaurant is closed." Mr. Krabs gets the bright idea to run a 24-hour business. So he makes the business 24 hours, and basically it just goes into a I forget the exact film word for it, but like it gets into a creepy Twilight Zone motif where like they
Yeah.
just get a bunch of creepy people coming in, and then you get the hash slinging slasher, who comes from one of Squidward's stories to SpongeBob, and that goes on for a good 3 minutes, and that's awesome. And then you get the great cameo by Nosferatu to finish it all off. So, okay, what are some of the interesting jokes from this? So really, it just comes
Hmm.
down to the hash sling slasher thing. If you're not a fan of that story, you're not gonna like this episode, but most people do. And it's really funny because like SpongeBob can't say it right the entire time. He's like this the hash flinging slasher or the slash ringing, and like he just misses. He keeps mixing it up until the final scene where the guy eventually appears. And yeah, like Squidward's story to SpongeBob is great. Like SpongeBob goes through like a bunch of phases of like being scared. He's like like his eyebrows are screaming. Like eventually at the final.
Oh, I always found that really disturbing.
Yeah, it is kind of creepy. Like the
He literally
especially like the,
he he has a popcorn bucket of his own arms and he's eating them.
yeah, and like so the big punchline for Squidward is when the hash sling slasher cuts off his own hand. And the writers like they treat it like it's nothing, and SpongeBob's like this, and he just starts pulling off his hands over and over again. And he's like,
Yeah, it's odd.
yeah, and like
It's really weird.
it's a weird scene.
I'm sure they had fun animating it though.
Yeah, and like one of my favorite parts in it is like the just like this is something I really like in comedy where like you just interrupt the moment completely and you're like you just stop for something and then you just return right back to the whole brevity of the moment. So like Squidward's in the
Yeah,
middle, like he's gearing up to the climax, and like someone just
oh,
walks up
that's
to the
right.
cash register. He's like, "Hey, you got some ketchup?" He's like, "Yeah, sure," and like they just continue with it.
Yeah,
Like that's just a strong choice, and I'm a big fan of that. And like when Squidward's trying to formulate the story off the top of his head, like he's trying to set it up so that SpongeBob's gonna think that the Hashling Slasher is coming that night. So and like he doesn't know what day it is, and he's like, the Hashling Slasher always comes to the Krusty Krab on what day is it? Tuesday. Tuesday nights, and
it's funny.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a great run.
it's really.
And they just decide to throw Nosferatu in at the very end for no reason, because like they're going through the evidence for because like Squidward lays out like four signs of the hash sling slasher, and the one that they can't come up with, surprisingly, isn't the green slime oozing from the ceiling, because apparently they always do that,
They always do.
but it's the flickering lights. And they
Mm-hmm.
cut away after like they meet the hash sling slasher, and it turns out he was just trying to get a job at the Krusty Krab to
Yeah, it's
Nosferatu.
like this nerd with his own spatula. That's
Yeah,
all it is.
they cut away to Nosferatu, who's flickering the lights in like a black and white scene that I almost
I,
wonder if it's like an original, if like it's actually from a movie or something.
the character the character that footage is from a movie, but the the hand over the light is what they edited.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But
Yeah,
Nosferatu, if you look up, yeah, Nosferatu's a movie.
yes, and he was the original, not Dracula. He's like the original vampire, and
Yeah,
yeah, and, like I didn't know that for the longest time in this episode. I thought that it was just some random guy they threw in, and then I was like, oh my god, that's actually Nosferatu, and,
yeah.
and yeah, that was
It's
a really
just
cool thing.
it's weird. I don't know were the producers drunk when they threw that in. I don't know.
Yeah, but no, I think it worked fine.
It was funny. It was funny, just creepy, but I'm a little creepy, but not creepy anymore. But it was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good.
All right. So now we have Krusty Love, which I I feel like a lot of people don't like this episode, but maybe
I'm
I'm wrong
not.
in that.
I like one part of it, but that's it.
Okay.
It's not actually two parts. Two gags. Two gags are really good. Oh, it's my turn.
Yep.
Hurrah! All right. Well, basically, Mrs. Puff visits the Krusty Krab, and Mr. Krabs is like, "Hey, well, she's pretty cute." So, and this he gets the intel from SpongeBob, and he's like, "That's Mrs. Puff," and Mr. Krabs is sad because he says, "Oh, she's married." But she was Mr. Puff. I'll tell you the gag with me when after. So Mr. Krabs was like, "Yeah, I have a shot with her." So he like tries to flirt, but he gets super nervous and just doesn't say anything at all. He's literally speechless, but manages to get the point across. He wants to go on a date with her, and she's like, "Heck yeah!" And so they fall in love and they go on dates and stuff. And eventually, Mrs. Puff is like, she wants some gifts, and Mr. Krabs is like, okay, and he has a lot of money, so he buys her like a lot of stuff and makes SpongeBob his personal assistant
Yeah.
and deliverer, and just makes him bring all this stuff. And then he's like, SpongeBob, why'd you bring this? And Mr. SpongeBob's like, you told me to. And Mr. Krabs is like, well, she doesn't want that now.
Yeah, because
That's
like one
basically
one
what
of the running things throughout the show is Mr. Krabs dealing with his love for Mrs. Puff versus his crippling desire to be cheap. So like he doesn't want to spend any money on her, but he keeps trying to spend money on her to win her over. And like
Yep.
SpongeBob is supposed to be stopping him from spending any money.
That's true. That's right. That's the part. Yeah, that's the part I wasn't fully. But yeah. So then SpongeBob eventually just loses it. Says a slew of bad words, but they're inaudible.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And then he just storms off, muttering under his breath. And then Mrs. Puff said, "I didn't know SpongeBob has such a colorful vocabulary."
Yeah.
And then she's like, she's on like a mountain of gifts, which includes like a new boat, like a brand new car, and just like she's covered with like jewelry and gold and it's like chocolate, everything, like just a mountain. And she's like, Eugene, with Mr. Krabs' first name, I appreciate all this, but maybe I'm not ready for a relationship yet. But she's like, you've been sweet, and kisses him on the cheek, and then he's like, oh.
Yeah, that's right.
He like melts, not physically, but he gets all blush, and his eyes like droop to the side. Yeah, and I think that's basically it.
Yeah, this episode's it's just fun because like it takes two characters that aren't going to run into each other otherwise. It puts them in an interesting situation, and it brings SpongeBob into it.
Two secondary characters have good screen time.
Yeah.
Also, Mr. Puff.
Yes, I was hoping you'd get back to this.
Mr. Krabs says, "What happened to Mr. Puff?" And it shows we see a hand move up and it turns on a light, and it's a pufferfish lamp hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah, that was great.
And it's like it's so bad. Gosh, knowing all the trauma she must have gone through.
Yeah, I don't even think she responds to that.
It's the darker side of SpongeBob you don't think about.
No, definitely not. And it's always really fun when the show takes it there.
Yeah, they really took it there.
Yeah, they took it all away.
Alrighty.
Okay, so that's that one. Okay. It's probably not a good idea to have me talk about this one, but you know what? I'm gonna go for it anyways because I am not a fan of this episode. I think honestly the problem is I've seen this episode too many times, so like all of the gags, like there really aren't any gags.
Procrastination.
Yes, this episode.
It's weird. It's really different.
Yeah. So basically, the premise is SpongeBob. It's similar to the ending of the first boating school episode where SpongeBob has to write like a essay to get extra credit for getting his boating license. Except this time it's just like some normal essay because they use the boating school as an excuse to deal with educational themes. So like SpongeBob has an assignment to write an 800-word essay. So he goes back home. Of course, he waits until the last night to do it, as we all do. Whatever, and yeah, fight me. But he's trying to write the essay. He's trying to get inspiration, and he spends like an hour of that time writing the word "the" in like the most complicated way you could possibly think of.
It's really nice though.
Yeah, it looks great. I almost want to make it. I almost want to add it to like all my papers. So it looks like this, like the standard classic novels where like you have the first word, not even the first word, just like the first letter written in like giant typeface, and then the rest of the chapter follows after that. Like it looks really nice.
How many words was that say supposed to be? 300?
800.
800.
Yeah, so it's like he starts by being like, okay, 799 to go, and
That's right.
then he just like falls asleep or something, and then he
Oh
just
he falls asleep and he has nightmares.
yes, and like one of
Like
the
oh, sorry.
yeah, so like one of the nightmares is like he thinks that he burned the whole house down because he fell asleep and knocked over a candle. So like that's one of the funnier gags in the show where like he is has to run out of the house and he's like, no, my house is melting, and like, he's just running around the house screaming, and obviously nothing happens, and he just wakes up. And oh wait, no, it cuts to the clock in the house, and it's like in the house, and like it's in the shape of like a snail, and like it turns into Gary, and it's like, time's up, SpongeBob.
It got real creepy. As a kid, that was creepy to me, especially
Yeah, me too.
the flame that started the fire came to life, and it was like
Yeah, that was a creepy thing.
And it said only 70-99 words to go, and then just like started a fire.
Yeah, that was that was definitely a creepy moment.
I found that disturbing, and the house talked to him as it was on fire.
Yeah, why didn't you write this essay sooner, SpongeBob? Why? Oh, yeah, that was nightmare fuel right there.
Just really weird. That's something I feel like writers and producers like throw together from 2 to 4 a.m. It's like, oh yeah, we needed a draft due today. Here we go. Procrastination.
Yeah. No, I understand that, and yeah, no, I feel like it was a good choice to have like a scary episode, like a legitimately scary episode. Not like the Graveyard Shift where it's like supposed to be scary and like it's not scary. Like this is meant to like actually creep people out and like really attack kids when like everyone procrastinates, but like be like, hey, you want to be like this guy, and yeah, like that's a pretty dark thing. And eventually it ends with SpongeBob like waking up like 30 minutes before class or something, and like he just gets inspiration out of nowhere and he just writes the whole thing. And he eventually gets to boating school, and it turns out the essay wasn't even due that day because Mrs. Puff just didn't want to have it due that day. Something we can all relate to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the worst when teachers like you have like a big assignment due and it turns out like, no, it's gonna be due tomorrow, whatever.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so that's that one. Ooh, there's apparently some deleted scenes. I didn't realize this. This is interesting. This is why you go to the wiki when you're going through summaries, even if you think that you know the episode.
For procrastination.
Yeah. So apparently there's a scene where this sounds great. Oh wait, this is actually super inappropriate.
Oh wait, I'll check it out too.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna go for it. So like, there's a scene where apparently, and this is supposed to be an adult joke, I guess. So SpongeBob looks out of his window when he's procrastinating, and yeah, I remember this now. Like this is coming after when he first looks out at them, and like he sees Patrick and Sandy having fun outside, and he's like, "Oh, I wish I could have fun outside, but I'm busy writing my essay." And like apparently Patrick is rubbing sun lotion on Sandy's back, and he's like, "Come on, SpongeBob." And then I'll quote it here. This scene was removed due to it looking like Patrick was unhooking Sandy's bikini. So yeah,
like, that's. I feel like I've seen that scene.
Not me, but yeah, like the picture does look interesting.
Unless they were doing something different, the pictures look interesting. All right, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so that's procrastination.
It might have been like declassified later or something.
Yeah, maybe. Like I've definitely seen those deleted scenes from like Star Wars and stuff.
I believe they took that's similar. They took Band Geeks off the air for a few weeks or a few months just because of the blimp scene.
Oh, really?
It was post 9/11. They took it off.
Oh god, those guys are so oversensitive. Sheesh.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah, so yeah, it's weird.
Things blow up. But yeah, like no, this episode just creeped me out, and like its jokes got old. Like you see it once, you get it, and like it just doesn't have any jokes, so like it doesn't have that much rerun value.
All right, moving on. Probably the worst episode of season 2.
What? No.
It's boring. If I don't remember it, then there's nothing really.
You don't remember I'm with stupid?
No.
Wow. Okay. Do you want me to take it?
No, I have the synopsis. I'm just gonna. I'll remember when it gets to me. I remember what his parents look like. Basically, Patrick is seen cleaning his home by SpongeBob. He says his parents are coming, and Patrick gets worried because he as dumb as he is, he knows he is not smart.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to face that in front of his parents because he wants to impress his parents. So,
and you have like
know,
the standard scene of like the young adult whose parents are visiting him for the first time, like them trying to frantically clean up the house. Like Patrick's house, it has nothing in it; it's just a bunch of sand. So like, he's trying to mold the like sand into a bunch of furniture and stuff, and like he makes a lamp and whatever, and like he starts licking the lamp.
Oh, I remember that. Oh, that's also a subliminal message
that
the writers put in. Because never mind.
Yeah, you get the idea.
Okay, so basically Patrick's like, cool, you can, SpongeBob says, I like stupid, so you'll seem smarter. And he'll just eat dinner with his parents. And Patrick's like, cool. But then, like, Patrick really starts, like, insulting SpongeBob for being stupid. Kind of forgets it's an act. And it really starts to make it, like, a real deal. And it also, like, it kind of brings up the importance of not making fun of stupid people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be a big thing. Like, and then Patrick wears a shirt that says "I'm stupid," and there's an arrow pointing at SpongeBob.
Yep.
And stuff like that. And then, so Patrick's parents are like, "Oh wow, you're so smart," and they're like, "We're so proud of you, son." And then, their names are the father says, "Come on, Janet." And then she says, "I'm coming, Marty." And then Patrick's like, "Wait a second, that's not the name of my parents." So basically, Starfish kind of like turned up at his house on accident, and Squidward brings his real parents, who were at his house all day, bugging him.
Yeah.
And Janet and Marty are like, "Oh yeah, we don't have a son."
Yeah. That was great.
It's just a weird episode. There's a picture on the site here. It's like Patrick sitting on the ground and SpongeBob squatting and SpongeBob.
Oh yeah, I can explain that one.
Yeah, explain it.
So basically, what Bailey's referring to is how Patrick first found out about his quote unquote parents visiting. Well, actually, I guess that was a letter from his real parents. I don't know how Janet and Marty showed up at his house, but like it starts with some great puns where. Okay, I'm trying to remember this to make sure I don't screw it up at all. So, okay, Patrick's like, hey, they gave me this letter. And SpongeBob opens it, and like, there's a letter on it. It's a giant B. So, it's like, ha ha, har har har, it's a letter. He's like, but hang on a second, SpongeBob, there's a note. And like, he opens it, and like, it's a musical note. And he's like, they also left this message. And like, it's an actual message at this point. But, that's funny.
That is kind of funny.
Yeah, and like this episode, I'll admit it, Bailey. This isn't one of the best episodes of the season, especially in one that's just jam packed with everything. But I take it over some of the other episodes, like Your Shoes Untied. I'm not a fan of that episode. I'd take this one over this just for the moments and like, honestly, for the opening theme, like that was pretty good. Do you remember it?
For
this episode, yeah, like the title card theme.
I don't remember the theme.
Okay, maybe I should cue it up. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna cue that up because I don't think Nickelodeon is listening this closely. I think I can get away with playing that. It's like a 5-second thing, but I'll get to that later. Let's see. Oh, I have the next one, so I guess I should probably do that first. Okay, well, in a couple of minutes, I'll play that, and you won't remember it had to do with I'm with stupid. I'll just throw it in at like some weird point during this next episode discussion. Okay, so in one of the only episodes in SpongeBob that deals with and it's such an adult topic as cuss words and which ones you should let your kids allow, should you let them swear or whatever. Like SpongeBob and Patrick, basically the premise is they learned some bad words from I forget who it was, but they learned them somewhere. And,
the dumpster.
Oh yeah, the dumpster. That's right. So like they go, like it starts at a scene of them going out back, and like they read a bunch of dumpster writing, as they call it, on the dumpster, and it's just a bunch of funny things to start off with. It's like, oh, Squidward smells. And then like they just add in it like good, and like it's just a bunch of little funny references in there.
Yeah.
And then eventually it goes to Yeah, it goes to crabs is A, and then like they cut to like a dolphin sound because it's kids television. You can't just throw in a bunch of bad words. And then like SpongeBob's like, "Hey, what's that word, Patrick?" And then Patrick tries to guess, and like he doesn't know, and he's like, "Oh, I know what it is. It's one of those sentence enhancers." And then they just they think that like it's some kind of actual vocabulary, and like it helps like your sentences, and like you should always use them because it makes you sound more professional. Which they are sentence enhancers, just not in a positive way for the most part. So yeah, they go back into the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob gets on the PA. He starts talking to everybody. And he's like, "Hey." Yeah, he just starts throwing out a bunch of random words. And like one of the funniest things in the episode is like they keep using different animal noises to represent the bad words. And there's like 13 of them by the end of the episode. So like like they keep switching them up over and over. So that's really fun. And like they can't believe what they're hearing, and like it cuts to a bunch of scenes of them just like freeze framed, and like they just their mouths open, like some food falling out, and like this octopus's kids laughing, and like the mom trying to cover their ears. That was a funny scene, and yeah, just like Mr. Krabs eventually coming out, and who's the one with the potty mouth? And oh wait, no, that's not what happens. Everyone files out of the restaurant, and like this little ticker on like the bottom right hand of the screen, it just starts going down to 0. And then, like Mr. Krabs, who's in his office. No, he wasn't in his office. He's in the bathroom. Like an alarm starts flashing off on the screen, and like he pulls down like a periscope. He's like on the toilet right now, doing what crabs do, and like he's just like doing the crossword puzzle on the newspaper, and like it pulls down like a periscope, and he looks at it, he's like, "There's no customers, where's my money?" And like he runs out of the office, and he has like a piece of toilet paper strapped to his foot, and that's really funny.
Yes.
And he's like, where'd all the customers go? What, Mr. Squidward, what is the meaning of this? And he's like, it's those two potty mouths over there, SpongeBob and Patrick. And like Mr. Krabs says whole lecture with them about, oh, bad words are bad and whatever, and like how they need to learn a lesson by is this where they go and paint Mrs. Krabs' house, or was that later?
No, they don't. They don't paint it here. No, that's something else.
Oh, okay. No, this definitely was this episode. It was just later in the episode. I'm trying to figure out what
Are you positive?
Yeah, because Mr. Krabs starts saying bad words as well, and then he says it in front of his mom or something, and then they have to go back to her house, and like they're painting her house, and then like she stubs her toe or something, and like like the show pretends that like she said a bad word, and it just makes like a really loud honking sound, and she's like, "What? It was Old Man Jenkins and his jalopy," and then like it just cuts to him being like, "Howdy, Mrs. K." So that was that, but what did they do beforehand? I don't know. I can't figure that out. But yeah, it has a really funny joke in it where SpongeBob is trying to count all the bad words that Mr. Krabs is using, and when I guess it was him that stubbed his toe. Maybe they both did. I don't know. And like he's counting on his fingers, because like for once like the character has like 5 fingers on their hand, and like he's counting, and then like it gets past 10, and like he just starts having more fingers go up, and then it gets up to like the 13 bad words. And obviously, like anyone that sees that scene just starts immediately thinking, like, okay, can I count 13 that I know? And yeah, that's a really funny
Wait,
scene.
this isn't the house painting episode.
No, it's not. I know what you're talking about. No, it's not that one. It's just like they're on the outside of Mrs. Krabs' house and painting it.
Yeah, they do have to paint the Krusty Krab as punishment.
Oh, okay, so they're painting both of them.
Give it a fresh coat of paint.
Okay, so okay, I guess they were just painting for both of them. And
Also, this gag where SpongeBob has 13 fingers.
yeah, that was great. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to this episode. It's funny because it deals with bad words. That's pretty much it, to be honest. So okay, that's Sailor Mouth, and now we have Artist Unknown. This has always been one of my
It's good.
best memories with SpongeBob. Just because I guess I've just seen this episode a ton.
Well, basically, Squidward considers himself an artist, so he opens an art class. And so a horde of people come in, he's like, sweet. And then they're like, oh, sorry, we're looking for the cooking class. And he's like, it's not here, it's somewhere else. And all of them leave except SpongeBob. And he's like, of course. So he tries to teach him art. It's marble sculpting. So Squidward, tries and doesn't do well, and then SpongeBob like taps the marble, and it turns into a perfect replica of David. And so then this new guy comes in, this catfish-looking dude. His name is Monty P. Moneybags. He's looking to buy art for his museum. And then Squidward tries to show him stuff, and he's like, no. And then you see SpongeBob's David replica. And he's like, oh, that's cool. I'll take that. And Squidward actually takes credit for it.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I remember. Yeah, he carries it. He carries the statue to Monty's car, and the head falls off. And Monty's like, "Well, can you have another one here tomorrow?" And Squidward's like, "Yes." And he has to beg SpongeBob to make another one. But the next day, SpongeBob can't make another one. He just forgets how to, or he doesn't take it to heart, or something like that. He can't make anything good. And then SpongeBob says his artistic triumph was too much for Squidward to handle. And then SpongeBob goes to the dump. Oh, I remember that. He puts the trash can on his head, and he barges to the wall, and he says, to the dump, to the dump, dump, dump. Yes, good times.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And then Squidward gets mad. He smashes all the marble in the room, and what's left is like a huge statue of David. And Moneybags walks in and says, "Who did that?" And Squidward, enraged, as the janitor. And so what's left is a huge statue of David. And Moneybags is like, "You were the greatest artist who's ever lived."
I warned you.
Oh my gosh, I hate you.
Yeah, that was the title card.
Basically, the janitor is like acclaimed to be the world's greatest artist because of that giant statue that Squidward left over on pure accident, and that's it.
Yep. So this one episode, really the biggest thing is it just deals with Squidward's artistic side. It decides it's just going to focus on that alone. I'm a big fan of the Monty guy. I think he contrasts pretty well with Mr. Krabs, and like he's obviously likes his money as well, but that's not his only character trait. He also just he's just a big egotist, and he likes making fun of Squidward's art, like the original stuff. And one of my favorite things was Old Bold and Brass. You remember that painting? And Moneybags is like,
old and brash.
Oh, belongs in the trash. And then the janitor's like, oops, I forgot that one. So that was great. And then another one of my favorite jokes was all the people lined up outside of the rec center that Squidward is teaching at. They all thought they were lined up for cooking class. So when Squidward comes out and he's like, "Who's ready for some art?" And he's like, "Art? We thought this was cooking." And like they all walk off.
Yep, they all walk off. It's a pretty good episode.
Yeah.
Also, if you wanna follow along with us, use SpongeBob.wikia.com.
Yeah, I also have the Wikipedia page pulled up. I haven't used it once, so
it has everything from title cards to descriptions of the whole episode to full transcripts to what music they use and what dialogue they use it for,
and even deleted scenes for some.
It's pretty impressive, actually. And this episode used a lot of classical music, like from history's past, which was pretty cool, like Romeo and Juliet overture and stuff like that.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Okay.
Well,
that's cool.
It's a lot. Reminds you how much editing goes into these shows.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially when it's like an 11-minute runtime, you really have to jam pack it with a ton of references and just have like the beats going super quick if you want it to feel like a full show happened. So yeah, that's Artist Unknown. It gives you a good taste of Squidward. So the next episode is probably my favorite jellyfishing episode. I know it's close with the first jellyfishing episode where SpongeBob and Patrick are going out and jellyfish.
You didn't like My Biggest Fanatic?
No,
with Kevin the Cucumber.
No,
not as much.
I mentioned that last time. Yeah, that one's a bit overrated in my eyes. I think people just like the whole Kevin the Cucumber gag and hi Kevin.
Touch.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like I just have to be the counterculture with that one.
Yeah.
So okay, this one is Jellyfish Hunter, and pretty much the whole premise is SpongeBob is out jellyfishing, as you do, and he sees a rare blue jellyfish, and he wants to catch it. So like he's trying to catch it, and he eventually gives up. He just falls flat on his face. He's like, "I'll eventually catch you, no name." So really, like the episode follows like SpongeBob and the blue jellyfish throughout. And something that interesting that happens in the episode is Mr. Krabs, SpongeBob. Okay, so how does it first get introduced to him? Okay, so SpongeBob comes to the Krusty Krab, and like Mr. Krabs gives him his 5 minute lunch break, and SpongeBob's like, "Ooh, 5 minutes is a whole minute longer than last time." So like he is on his lunch break, he has a Krabby Patty, and he brings some jellyfish jelly with him to the restaurant, and he just puts it on his sandwich as you do, and he puts it on, and he's enjoying it, and he's masticating all over the place with it. And yeah, that's an interesting scene. Like one of the customers overhears him because he's masticating super loudly, and hopefully I didn't lean into that one too much. And yeah, like the customer's like, "Excuse me, sir, what is that you have on your sandwich?" And SpongeBob's like, "Oh, it's a Krabby Patty smothered in jellyfish jelly." And he's like, "Did you say jellyfish jelly?" And like it just goes into like a whole minute long.
He breaks into song.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite songs in the entire series, honestly. And like, do you want to do a sing along to it?
I don't remember the words. I know how it goes. I know the sound, but also I don't know. It's not really a long song, is it? It's like 4 or 8 measures.
No, I don't think so. Oh, there's a transcript right here. We can just pull that up.
Oh gosh.
Okay, we're gonna go for this.
Oh gosh, should I pull it up?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Oh gosh, here we go.
Okay,
Alright.
so here, let me find where this happens. Oh, his name is Fred.
Oh yeah, his name. That's the guy. He's the guy who's in every episode.
Okay.
I gotta find the transcript.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about how we should do this because I don't want it to overlap. Let's see. Here, do you want to?
I don't even see the.
Here, I'll just do it. I'll let you. Yeah, here, go to the title card in the top right of the website, and then under that it should be episode transcript, gallery, and credits. So just click on transcript.
Oh gosh, that's too much for me to do.
Well, you only have to click on the transcript. I'm just telling you where it is on the screen. Like, do you have the Jellyfish Hunter episode queued up?
Oh yeah, hold on. Yes.
It's like talking to my grandpa. Just kidding.
Hey.
Just kidding. I haven't talked to my grandpa in like 5 years.
Oh, that's depressing. Remember to talk to audience, talk to your grandparents.
Yeah, don't be like me and have no relationship with your whole extended family. That's not cool.
Jellyfish Hunter. Don't see a transcript. Oh, I see it. All right, so hit transcripts.
You can only forestall it for so long. Here, I'll how about this? How about we do the whole scene here? So, okay, do you want to be SpongeBob
I got it.
So I'll be Fred. Do you want to be SpongeBob?
Sure, but where do you want me to start?
Okay, so go down to just do a Control F to no name. Oh, well, actually, it's like 3 lines down. Just go to the first line for no name, and then go like right below that to right after cut to the Krusty Krab.
Yeah, I'm at Fred's part. Yeah, I'm already there.
Okay, yeah, just go back up to where SpongeBob says, "I'm going on my lunch break, Mr. Krabs."
All right, let's see.
Yeah, let's see how your SpongeBob impression is.
I'm not doing the SpongeBob.
I'm going for it.
Oh gosh, let's see. I'm going on my lunch break, Mr. Krabs.
You got 5 minutes.
Wow, 1 more minute than yesterday. SpongeBob, ready for lunch? And he lifts his bag and there and goes, and a jar of jelly and Krabby Patty falls out. And he slathers, what's the word? Slathers the jelly on the patty. He starts eating it and he says, "Yum."
Hey, buddy, what the heck is that?
Why, this is a hole, sir. You see, I am a sponge, and...
No, not that. That patty. That.
It's just a little Krabby Patty with jellyfish jelly. I call it a Krabby Patty with jellyfish jelly.
Could I try some?
Sure.
Amazing. I've got to tell someone about this. Hey, all you people. Hey, all you people. Hey, all you people, won't you listen to me? I just had a sandwich, no ordinary sandwich, a sandwich filled with jellyfish jelly. Hey, man, you've got to try this sandwich. It's no ordinary sandwich. It's the tastiest sandwich in the sea.
Yeah. He proceeds to scan.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, I think we embarrassed it.
Oh yeah, Mr. Krabs is SpongeBob who's playing Squidward's records again.
Yeah, that was a great line. Okay.
Yes, that's what.
Well, I
That's why
can.
you gotta rewatch stuff because you just forget.
Yeah, this was an awesome episode, and like it just goes into a whole routine after that where Mr. Krabs realizes that it's a whole like he can turn it into a whole racket because everyone's willing to buy the Krabby Patties if they have jelly on them. So he's always trying to get SpongeBob to. Well, no. Now SpongeBob's new job, instead of being a fry cook, is to just go to jellyfish fields and try and collect as much jelly as he can to Mr. Krabs. So SpongeBob's happy to oblige, and he just does that every day. And every day when he comes back to Mr. Krabs does like a more and more exasperated rendition of more, and like SpongeBob's
Oh,
like,
that's where that meme came from.
yeah, and like SpongeBob's like, is this
More,
enough?
more.
More, SpongeBob,
Oh, I
more.
remember now. SpongeBob catches like all the jellyfish in jellyfish fields just for the sole purpose of jelly, and it's like abusing the jellyfish. And No Name gets mad at him and calls him on the phone.
Yeah, yeah, that was great because like he gets to jellyfish fields and he's like, oh, I guess I'm done. There's no more jellyfish. So like he heads home. He's whistling. No Name follows him, and like SpongeBob feels. Oh, this is great. This is one of my favorite jokes in the entire series. I know I keep saying that, but this one really is great. So
Okay.
SpongeBob's going home, and like he thinks someone is following him, and like No Name is obviously following him. So like SpongeBob keeps
Oh,
looking
that's
over his
right.
shoulder, and he's like, and like he just keeps running. He's like, I feel like someone is trying to sell me something. And then like it cuts to a scene of like these salespeople hiding behind a rock. He's like, Jesus, Bill, he's gone to us. And that was awesome.
I thought he was on to us.
Like if
Yeah.
anyone has ever experienced door salesman, they get that immediately.
Mhm.
That was an awesome scene. So after that, SpongeBob eventually runs home to his house because he doesn't want to buy anything or whatever, and like he's super paranoid now because No Name is after him, and like he eventually gets a phone call, and then No Name cuts the power line after he breathing menacingly into it. So that happens,
That's right.
and
Yep,
then
it does.
I forget how SpongeBob ends up there, but oh, that's right. Like No Name eventually just comes into his house and gets him. Oh, he ties him up. That's right, and he puts him into a jar, and he takes him off
Mhm.
to Mr. Krabs's jellyfish farming factory.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it was like a complete turn. Like, yeah, if anyone saw that coming, good for you. But like it was just a 180. And Mr. Krabs apparently is running like a factory farming of jellyfish. And it gets into like a whole PETA thing where it's like, oh, we need to save the jellyfish because they're being factory farmed and they're being like milked for the jelly by a bunch
Mhm.
of creepy machines. And like just one scene where like the machine is like a hand and it's like tickling the bottom of the jellyfish. It's like coochie coochie coo, and like the jellyfish like just sneezes
It's like
out.
stupid.
Yeah, it was just,
It's ridiculous. That's what makes SpongeBob so funny. Just random things,
yeah, like you
but
just don't
not too
expect it.
random.
No, not too random. You don't want to be like Ren and Stimpy or something.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, that show's creepy, but you're
Yeah.
never gonna see a review of Ren and
Yeah. No.
Stimpy from
No.
us.
We're not gonna talk about that.
No, we're not. We're gonna talk about this episode and how it concludes with SpongeBob eventually freeing all the jellyfish. Oh wait. So no, I'll get back to this gag. And then he's super happy because all the jellyfish are free. They all sting Mr. Krabs, and Mr. Krabs is like, "I'm gonna go back into the restaurant business," and he just walks off. And then you have a fun scene to end it all with SpongeBob talking to No Name and deciding to call him friend. So yeah, and the one gag that I didn't get a chance to mention is when SpongeBob eventually arrives at the factory and like he's still in the jar. He's looking through the window. He's looking at all the atrocities, and then like it cuts over to Mr. Krabs who's on like an exercise bike. And he's just
Oh yeah, that's right. It's like
he's listening to like the sappy exercise music, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm pushing those glutes, boys."
it's like '90s female pop music.
Yeah, it was great.
Does he run the whole factory on that bike? I don't remember. I'm
I-
pretty sure he.
I think that was
ran it.
that was what the writers meant, but and that
Yeah,
obviously
that's
made no
true.
sense.
All right, we gotta move on.
Yeah.
Oof.
So
Oh man, we're really.
at this point, I think we're gonna have to make a part 3 next Saturday.
Of course, yeah, and that's just for season 3. We're gonna get through like halfway of season 3.
Yeah, seems like that's where what we're on pace for. And I don't want to do any of these episodes a disservice because the rest of season 2 here is great, and the beginning of season 3 is great as well.
Yeah,
And we have one of the best episodes that, frankly, come in the entire series. And yeah, I would eventually love to see if you could make a top 10 because I would be curious to see where you put this because I struggle where to put this one. and that would
This
be
next episode. Wait, this next episode.
yes, the Fry Cook Games.
The Fry Cook Games, huh? All
Yes.
right. Well, I mean, I don't know. Was it? I wonder if it wasn't during the Olympics.
No, it wasn't, which is weird.
Unless the summer. No,
oh wait, Winter Olympics.
Oh, the Winter Olympics were coming up that winter. That's funny. Well, basically, this was like a rip off of the Olympics. You even see someone carrying like a torch.
Yeah.
To light the ceremonial whatever they had there. I don't remember. Anyway, it was just a fish running into a giant stadium. It's just a completely random episode. Basically, the Fry Cook Games, and it's just a showdown between Mr. Krabs and Plankton and their corresponding Fry Cooks. So Mr. Krabs is SpongeBob, and Plankton hires Patrick.
Yep.
And there's like this huge reveal, and it's like there's this giant muscular guy carrying him, and everyone's like, whoa, my gosh, who's that? Is that Plankton's Fry Cook? And then he turns around, and Patrick is like strapped to his back in a baby carrier.
Yep.
And that's actually Fry Cook. And so, we see SpongeBob and Patrick start out, they're friends, but then their mentors tell each other they're enemies, and they start like fighting each other, getting real mad at each other, throwing shade and everything. And they have to partake in Fry Cook activities such as dipping themselves in batter and frying themselves, and diving off of high dives and landing in chocolate and making ice cream out of themselves.
Don't forget the ice skating.
Oh, there was competitive ice skating.
And there was like a pineapple
just like
hat
a
dance.
2 second, and then it's like a bunch of 2-second clips. Yeah.
Yeah, they just go into a montage of all the other events that they don't have time to show.
It's literally, and then the last one, the big one, to decide it all is wrestling, and so they rip off their clothes, and they both reveal they both get 10 times bigger in size, and they're just fully ripped.
Yep.
And it's really funny. So they wrestle, and they're like, they call each other yellow and pink.
Yeah.
Which was like controversial because it's like their skin colors all maybe racist in there. But they were claiming they don't care about each other because they're fighting each other. So they're wrestling, and SpongeBob grabs a pencil, and Patrick has a name tag, and it says Patrick clearly because he wrote his name to let the crowd know who he is.
Yep.
And SpongeBob erases the Pat from Patrick, and he screams, "My name's not Rick!" And then he just starts to beat up SpongeBob.
Yep.
And they continue to fight. That's a great Patrick line right there, by the way.
Oh yeah.
They wrestle so hard that they rip each other's pants off.
Yep.
And Patrick's underwear is yellow and SpongeBob's underwear is pink, and they get all sappy, and they're like, "Oh, you do care about me," and blah blah blah. And then they walk off together, holding hands.
Yes, and that's about where the episode ends, and it really goes into the friendship of SpongeBob and Patrick, because we like to talk about the themes in the episodes. That's the one that's really covered, and I guess I'll just cover some of the gags that we.
Lots of gags.
Yeah. I like the format that we're doing now, where we just do the plot and then we cover the gags. I think that's a smarter idea instead of just stopping the plot for the gags.
I'm bringing out the transcript because there's one at the very end that's really good, and not a lot of people hear it.
Yes, and you really have to read into that one to get the humor, because there's a couple layers there.
So you go over the gags. And
yeah.
I'll cover the rest
So okay, I'll start at the beginning. So it starts off with obviously the torchbearer for the Olympics. He's running into the actual stadium, and they do the whole fanfare, and it's like do 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 or whatever. It's not the Superman theme. I botched that, but yeah, he's running into the stadium. And he finally gets to the top, and he's about to light the main torch. He's like, "Let the Fry Cook Games begin!" And then the wind comes on and it blows out the torch. And then they have to do a please stand by. And then the next time he's out of breath because he has to run all the way back, and he's trying to cover the flame so it doesn't get blown out again. And then he eventually lights the main torch, and then he catches on fire as well because why not? And then they bring back the announcer that does all the narrating, and he's awesome.
Oh yeah.
And he has a meta moment where he's like, "Why am I a talking fish head?" And that was great.
I declare these Fry Cook Games open.
Yep. And
it was the 21st Fry Cook Games.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, for whatever reason.
And they really treat it professionally, and there's this whole thing with SpongeBob him doing push-ups at the beginning. He's like, "Krusty Krab," and then Patrick comes up and he's like, "Oh, SpongeBob, you can't move the ground like that. You gotta get underneath and lift with your knees." And he just rips the turf off the ground. So that was great. And like the entire time, Plankton and Mr. Krabs are just trying to manipulate them into working harder. The actual events are a ton of fun. I really enjoyed that. I wish they got more events in, honestly, and didn't have so many just coming in the montage. And then, do you want to take the final gag?
I'm gonna take the couple ones at the very beginning. There's a clip of a female fish throwing doing like a hammer style throw.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Of a straw into a large plastic cup.
Oh, that'd be javelin.
I found that funny. Was it javelin?
I mean,
I thought
it's a straw.
it was almost like shot put. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, I mean similar. It was funny.
Yeah.
And so they had an event where they had to jump into a frying of like a vat full of frying oil, and SpongeBob makes it. Patrick lands on the edge, so the frying oil flies in the audience, and of course there's fish in the audience, so the oil hits them, and they all turn into fish sticks. And the vendor just comes up, and he puts lights over the fish sticks, and he's like, "Fish sticks, get your fish sticks here."
Yep, that was great.
It also implies cannibalism though, which was like kind of dark.
Well, you know.
But it's so fun. I just like the voice actor's voice for that was just funny. I found that hilarious as a kid. And the last gag, I was thinking of
Yes, as they're walking off the stage.
Yes, as they're walking off, we see Patrick is wearing yellow underwear for SpongeBob, but he says, these were white when I bought them.
Yes. Obviously, the implication there being that he either peed in them or I don't know, something else.
Or he never ever washed them, which is arguably even worse.
Yeah.
It's just gross. Yeah.
Or worse, he didn't wash them and he peed in them. As you do.
Yes.
We've all been there. Not really, but really. But not really. Okay. So and next we got Squid on strike. Oh wait, sorry.
I'll just get over. It was just that thing. It was like Plankton was like, "Look at him, square, the shape of evil."
Yeah, that was great. And like there was a whole thing with like Patrick kept putting lemons on his eyes for no reason. And like obviously lemons are acidic, so like they burnt his eyes, and he's just like screaming whenever he does it. He's like, "Ah!"
And SpongeBob's ice cream landing had like toasted almonds.
Oh yeah, the toasted almonds.
Almonds, curse him. That's good, but perhaps a bit too highbrow for this crab.
Yeah,
it's like literally talking about like expensive ice cream. It just dives so deep into stuff sometimes. It's funny.
Oh, and one thing we forgot when they're ripping off their clothes for the wrestling scene. So like SpongeBob, he just rips it off, and he's super buff. And then Patrick rips his off. He's like in a business suit. He's like, "Oh crap!" He's like in a Triple H attire. He just rips that off too.
And then he rips it off, and then he's buff. And
that was a nice touch.
Also, what disturbed me, Patrick got SpongeBob's leg and started licking the bottom of his foot.
Oh yeah, that was
Was
creepy.
like screaming. I was like, "What the heck?" That was like gross.
Yeah, that was like a fetish thing.
Yeah. All right. Last two of the season.
Yep. Okay, so we got Squid on strike. Now I'm a big fan of this one because I think I get all of the episodes that really before the end of season 3 they get into Squidward's character. I'm a fan of those episodes because I like Squidward. So in this episode, as the title would imply, SpongeBob and Squidward are going on strike against Mr. Krabs. I forget the exact reason why. It's probably just because Eater wasn't. Oh, that's right. And like Mr. Krabs was talking about giving him a paycheck, and like Squidward opens his paycheck, and he's like, "Oh, my favorite time of every other week," and like he opens it up, and like it's like nothing because Mr. Krabs is losing money. Like he marches in, he's like, "Mr. Krabs with the H," and yeah, Mr. Krabs is like, "Sorry, pay cuts, whatever." And Mr. Squidward's like, "This is completely ridiculous. You can't do this to us. We have workers' rights." And like he goes to SpongeBob, he's like, "SpongeBob, we have to go on strike." And SpongeBob doesn't know what a strike is, so he's like, "Yeah, let's go on strike." And then they're like, "No, why did we go on strike?" He's like, SpongeBob loves his job. He didn't actually know what that meant. So like Squidward's trying to get him to throw his hat into the ground, because like that's what you do when you go on strike, I guess, and like stomp it into the ground. And like SpongeBob can't do it. It's like stuck to his hand. And Squidward just rips it out of his hand, throws it on the ground. He gets a littering ticket. It gets put on his nose. That was funny. And like he stomps it into the ground. And then after that, they have to make picket signs. SpongeBob thinks he says picket fences, so he just makes a sign that's a picket fence. Like this Squidward.
Oh yeah, he has a sign. He has a wooden post and then just a piece of a picket fence on top of it.
Yeah, that was great. And then Squidward goes into his protest speeches. So like he's giving a big loud speech, and he has a microphone, and then he like walks up to somebody, and he just does it right in their face, and like their eyeballs get like shot out of their head or whatever. And yeah, like they get into like the mentality of a crowd, and like the entire crowd is like, "Wow, who's this guy speaking with the loud microphone? He sounds convincing. I don't know, but we should go along with him." Because like the fish are always giving good lines like that. And then by the end of
Yep.
it, they're like, "Wow, all this protesting sure makes me hungry. Let's go to the Krusty Krab." So then they trample him to go into the Krusty Krab after all that. So after
Yep.
that, Squidward feels super deflated, literally and metaphorically. And he's just sick of his strike, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go back to Mr. Krabs and ask to get our jobs back. And SpongeBob's like, no, we must continue the strike. So SpongeBob goes at night to the Krusty Krab, and he starts dismantling it, ripping up the floorboards, just like Squidward said in metaphor during his speech. And he just destroys the Krusty Krab because that's how you do a strike. You just burn down the entire place. So yeah, SpongeBob does that while Squidward is on a walk with Mr. Krabs. Actually, it's interesting. Mr. Krabs comes up to Squidward when Squidward is at his most desperate position, and like he's come to beg Squidward to take his job back because apparently the college kids who got the new job, they were terrible.
Yeah.
And like it cuts to like them appearing behind Mr. Krabs, and they're like, "Right on, Mr. K." So that was funny. And yeah, like then it just goes to Mr. Krabs and Squidward getting back to the Krusty Krab. Squidward having a panic attack because he realizes SpongeBob ruined everything, and yeah, Mr. Krabs just falling apart because he realizes his ruin. And then he's like, "You guys will work for me forever."
And then it's like, is that when it cuts to them as like skeletons?
Yes, and like that's obviously a callback to the beginning of the episode when Squidward realizes that he'll be on strike with SpongeBob until like he's super old or whatever. And SpongeBob's like, Squidward.
Yeah, Squidward just like floating around. Just a vision he had. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Don't forget, the Krusty Krab is unfair. Mr. Krabs is in there standing at the concession, applauding his oppression.
Yeah, that was good.
It's a good one.
Yeah, this is a fun episode, and as I said, I like
it. There's like beatbox trap remixes of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you just look it up later. It's pretty funny.
Okay, so yeah, that's Squid on Strike. Now we have an episode that's kind of it kind of does a disservice to the season, to be honest, but it's not terrible. Which is
it's not terrible. I enjoyed this one.
No, I did too. I just mean after this crazy run of episodes, it just can't hold up.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So we have Sandy, SpongeBob, and the Worm, and I'll let you take the finale.
Alrighty. So we have in the middle of the night. There's a giant thing moving underground that destroys a lot of Bikini Bottom, including SpongeBob's house. And at the Krusty Krab, there's a huge crowd there, like saying what the heck's going on. And who said it was an Alaska bullworm? SpongeBob or Sandy? No, SpongeBob said it. SpongeBob said it's a big, hairy, and pink thing, and he called it the Alaskan bullworm, which is not a real animal, but it's based off of giant sea worms. So they just need they need a plan to protect themselves. There's also a man who like had his butt bitten off by the worm.
Yeah, because apparently his name is Pa Cheeks.
Pa Cheeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh wait, no, it's not. Sorry, his name. That's some other guy who, ironically, is named Pa Cheeks. No, it's the character's name is Fish with Eaten Butt. Yeah. Nope. Apparently he wasn't.
Right, so basically, we gotta keep the town safe. What are we gonna do? Patrick says to physically grab everyone in Bikini Bottom and push the city somewhere else. Just stupid. Everyone knows. And then Sandy says, oh, "Okay, I'll hunt it down. I'm from Texas. There'll be no problem." And so SpongeBob, Sandy, and Patrick, or is it just SpongeBob and Sandy? It's just SpongeBob.
Yeah, just SpongeBob and Sandy.
They go to take down the worm, and they find this big moist cave, this big tall cave to go in. And Sandy goes in, and she's like, SpongeBob stays outside. He hears fighting and punching, and she comes out with what appears to be the worm like wrapped around her, like it's lassoed and everything. He takes it down. And like she's riding and everything, and it stops, and then she's like, "Oh, that was easy." And SpongeBob looks up, and he's like, "Sandy, that's not the worm. That's its tongue." And then looks up, and like the cave they were in is the actual worm. So the worm's like huge and probably like 500 feet long. It's gigantic. It's basically a train.
Yeah.
And so it roars and it starts chasing them, and I'm trying to remember what begins to happen after that. So
So they just
they chase and oh yeah. Oh yeah, SpongeBob was trying to tell Sandy that it's really dangerous, and now he gets to admit that he was right. And Sandy's like, "Yeah, you were right." Oh, Sandy takes the friendship necklace that SpongeBob gave her. It's a paper clip.
Yep.
That's an S for SpongeBob, an S for Sandy when you flip it upside down, and uses it as basically a swing to safety, and the worm hurls off a cliff.
Yep. And where did it land?
And the worm said, where did it land?
It landed right on top of the city that Patrick and Squidward had been getting everyone to push.
Oh yes, they were pushing it. They were pushing it out, and it landed on top of it. And the worm said, "Ouch."
Yep.
That's about what it sounds like. Ouch.
Yeah, that's a good impression.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, there aren't really any other jokes in this episode. Yep.
Shady, this is your pappy speaking.
Oh, I forgot about that. When did that come?
That's when SpongeBob's trying to tell Sandy it's too dangerous, and he's like, "Sandy, it's your pappy speaking. Get back here, young lady. It's too dangerous.
Okay.
Get right back here, young lady." Yeah, you can see it in the synopsis. It's funny. It shows the vocal ability of Tom Kenny. It's very impressive.
Okay, gotcha. All right,
Okay.
so now we can move on to season 3 finally.
That concludes season 2 of.
Oh, I forgot. Didn't we last time do like our best episode and worst episode?
Oh, okay. Well, that's probably we did. Let me just go back to the top, see what we covered like 4 months ago.
Yeah, I gotta see what was the worst episode. Oh wait, actually we did like bottom 3 and top 3. Okay, that's it.
We'll just do top and let's just do top and bottom.
Yeah. Okay.
Gosh. Well, top, I'm gonna have to tie it because oh gosh, I don't know. Shanghai, Survival of the Idiots, and Band Geeks. I mean, those are all quality, just for humor. Bottom 3, I'm thinking. Well, Pressure's not horrible. Bottom 3, I'm thinking like Krusty Love and what's the other one I hated? I'm with Stupid, and the clam one. Let's see, what was it called? What was it? The Smoking Peanut. Yeah, just stuff like that.
Okay. So for me, I have Shanghai at the very top. Obviously, I'm pulling up my top 10 and my top 10, my top everything list from last time, just so I make sure I get this right. So yeah, I have Shanghai from the stuff we talked about last time. I'll just give a shout out to Dying for Pie. It wouldn't make my top 3 just because you gotta give Band Geeks and Graveyard Shift a shout out, but that is an awesome episode as well. And then for the bottom ones, I'm just gonna go with Bossy Boots because the boots are annoying. Big Pink Loser because not much happens, and Wormy because the Sandy, SpongeBob, and the Worm is better than Wormy.
Are those all season 2?
Yeah.
Big Pink Loser? It must be at the top. I didn't see it.
Yeah, apparently. Okay, so that's our recap of season 2. So now we move on to season 3, and probably my favorite Mr. Krabs and Plankton episode in the entire series, honestly. That being the algae is always greener.
Oh gosh, the what if,
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of this one. I'm just glancing over the synopsis to make sure I'm thinking of the right one, because that'd be embarrassing if I just recap the wrong episode. Let's see. Yeah, Plankton, egg, stealing pearl. Yeah, sobs. Actually, can you start this one? Because I think I'm wrong. I just want to make sure that I have the right idea here.
Let me just check. Let me make sure I'm not wrong.
Yeah. Okay, so the one I'm thinking of is where Plankton just gives up on his evil ways and he starts a convenience store and he has a bunch of knickknacks. And
oh yeah, this is not that.
Okay, then yeah, I'm thinking of the completely wrong one. Here, how about we switch it up? How about you do the A's this time and then I do the B's?
I can do that. All right, so
also because I have absolutely no idea what this episode is now. Let's see.
All right, so the algae's always greener. Basically, Plankton is eating holographic meatloaf to start out, and he's like, "Why can't I get the secret formula?" He's kind of depressed. He's kind of bummed because he's worked so hard and he hasn't gotten anywhere. And he's like, I wish I could switch lives with Mr. Krabs, and Karen's like, well, we have a machine that can do that, and he's like, oh, sweet. And so Plankton is put into the machine, and he does some crazy transformation, and he wakes up as the owner of the Krusty Krab. So he has a lot of money, and he's working, and he sees Krabby Patties, and he's like drooling. But then he has to start dealing with his employees. So like if Squidward's asking for a raise, he's like, no, go away. SpongeBob's like, oh, that's right. Oh gosh. Okay, so SpongeBob. I'm just looking. I'm trying to see what. Oh yeah, SpongeBob wants a weekly performance review.
Okay.
And Plankton tells him that he's doing a good job, and SpongeBob says there's something that has to be wrong. And Plankton says, "Oh, you're using a little too much sauce." And then SpongeBob makes this weird face, and he's like, "Eh, eh, eh, eh."
Yeah.
It's really weird. And so Plankton's like starting to lose it. Like, how does Mr. Krabs deal with all this stuff? And yeah, so that's it. SpongeBob goes into despair, and Pearl arrives asking about her allowance, and Plankton gives her a single $1, and she starts losing, cries, and oh yeah, he made Squidward the new fry cook, and that went wrong because SpongeBob was in despair.
Yep.
And then a siren goes off, and it's like, he's here, and Plankton's like, who, where? And
oh,
like,
now I know what that siren. I couldn't figure out what that siren was. I thought it meant like a mythological siren, but now I know what it is.
There's this fast red moving object. It's like, oh, it's Mr. Krabs, and then like just like Plankton doesn't wear clothes, or Mr. Krabs is the Krusty Krab boss. Like Mr. Krabs is just butt naked.
Yeah.
Plankton says, "Good grief, he's naked." SpongeBob goes on in the crow's nest. It has a cannon that fires out clothes at him.
Yeah. Oh, that was great.
And yeah, his name is Krabs.
Yep.
So yeah, so basically. Oh, that's right. So eventually shoots him, and he's like, "Oh, you got me." And he only has a bra, like an unhinged bra. And he's like, "You win this time." And Krabs runs away, and oh, SpongeBob's like, "Victory screech!" And everyone in the Krusty Krab goes,
Yep.
And Plankton's like, "Goodbye. I'm gone. I can't deal with this." He says, "Goodbye, everybody. I'll see you all in therapy."
Yep. That was a great line.
And yeah, then he goes back through the machine, and he's like, "Oh yes," he starts eating his holographic meatloaf and starts appreciating life a little more. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, so I did not remember that episode at all. I thought it was a completely different one. I'm wondering when we're gonna get to that episode because I keep thinking that one's gonna come. But yeah, this was actually a really good episode. I completely forgot about it. I'm gonna have to rewatch it honestly, just like I did.
Yeah,
for,
I mean, there's a lot of good gags I forgot about.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that siren thing. As I said, I thought it was literally the Greek mythological creature. I was like,
oh gosh.
Yeah, I was like, crap, am I forgetting about like a really bad episode? But no, this was a good episode, and yeah, I'm excited to watch it after we finish. All right, so that's the Algae's Always Greener. So
also yeah, anyone who wants to watch SpongeBob episodes, just use some kind of Kiss cartoon, or I use KIM cartoon.me. There's ads, but you can just close them, and then it's just immediate watching with no commercials or anything. It's free. Yeah, pretty easy.
Or if you want to take legal routes, you can. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, all the episodes are free on there. So I would recommend doing that. Yes, they are. Yeah, Amazon Prime.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, get off of Kiss. You're gonna get some virus. Yeah, just go check out Amazon Prime. It has all free for the first 3 seasons at least free. I think. Yeah. It's just going back a couple of years. I know they used to have the rest of the seasons. You had to pay for it, but I think Amazon Prime has changed its policy. So like now, like the first 8 seasons or so are all free. So do that. Don't pirate stuff. That's not cool. Do that with anime. Don't do that with. Don't do that with.
It's not really pirating.
No, it is pirating.
You can always use. You can use Hulu too.
Who uses Hulu?
I know. If SpongeBob was on Netflix, it'd be perfect, but it's not.
Yeah. Who knows why? So yeah, that's the Algae's Always Greener. So next we have another episode where SpongeBob goes to the beach. We have SpongeGuard on duty. So basically the premise behind this episode is
not a good one. Well, not a great.
I think that's a great synopsis. Not a great one.
Season 3 takes a downfall.
Yeah,
compared to two. Two, can we agree two is the best season?
yeah, easily.
Yep.
There are definitely some great episodes in season 3. It's not as consistent.
Yep.
So in this episode, basically SpongeBob and Patrick are on the beach, so like suntanning or whatever, and like SpongeBob notices that Larry is a lobster. Sorry, not a lobster. Why I say that? A lifeguard. Yes, he is a lobster as well. And like he admires Larry. He's like, "Ooh, I wish I could be a lifeguard. Imagine that." And like it cuts to a scene of like a live action SpongeBob SquarePants mascot like being a lifeguard like on a beach and like in a
Oh, that's right.
in like a lifeguard tower, and that was funny. And he's like, "Yeah." And,
Yeah.
and like Patrick hatches a plan to get SpongeBob to be a lifeguard. So he's like, what makes someone a lifeguard? It's that white stuff on their nose, which obviously was like suntan lotion, but
Yep.
SpongeBob just puts like
Interesting.
ice cream on his nose. He's like, "Yay, I'm a lifeguard now!" And then he walks up to Larry. He's like, "Hey, I'm a lifeguard." And he's like, "Oh, cool, let's do our lifeguard things." And like they go swimming and like they go blowing whistles at people. They go putting a suntan lotion on people's back, and then like
Oh my
something bad
god.
is actually happening. And like Larry and SpongeBob have to go save some people because like everyone in the water is like, oh wait, no, I remember what happens. So Larry and SpongeBob like it's fine for a while because Larry is just handling all the hard stuff and like SpongeBob is just tagging along. But Larry eventually gets pulled away by a bunch of I don't know, like can I say like cute fish? I don't know what the a female fish, let's say, and like his lovers. I don't know, and like he gets pulled away. I don't know. Like, how would you describe him? Like his fan club?
Yeah, I mean, just admirers,
Okay, let's go with that. So like he's pulled away with his from SpongeBob by his admirers. So obviously he can't protect the beach. So SpongeBob starts to have a panic attack, and like he's worried that the entire beach is gonna die or whatever. And he starts hallucinating and seeing like everyone in the water getting hurting themselves, and like he keeps seeing like this one group of fish, like these two guys playing, and like they're laughing and like having fun in real life. But like SpongeBob sees it as like one of them is hitting him in the head with an anchor, and like one of them is
Oh
like
yeah.
trying to push the other guy underwater and drown him. So SpongeBob just has a panic attack. It's like, everyone out! There's sharks in the water! And then like a shark comes up. He's like, I was a little racist, buddy. He's like, I forget what he says after that, but yeah, like it gets everyone out of the water. I don't know, maybe say like someone peed in the water or something. Like everyone runs out, and then like he just puts up like a bunch of police tape around the beach. He's like, great, now all of you are safe. So yeah, like SpongeBob is just sitting at his lifeguard tower now, confident that nobody can ever get hurt. Oh, and then it goes to a scene of like Patrick in like a kiddie pool, and Patrick's like it was eating ice cream, and then like he gets a cramp and he's drowning in the kiddie pool. Like all the people who are in the police tape now are like, aren't you gonna go save him? And SpongeBob's like, no, he's fine. And like Patrick's like, I'm drowning, I'm drowning. He's like, he's not drowning. I'm really drowning. Like SpongeBob has to go save him. So like SpongeBob goes in with like a bunch of floaties and like whatnot. And he's trying to save Patrick, and Patrick's like doing the standard thing that you do in quicksand, where like you're trying to pull the other guy down to get yourself out. So like he's trying to push off of SpongeBob to get out of the kiddie pool, and like he's drowning SpongeBob in the process, and like they're both drowning. And then eventually it just ends the episode with Larry wading into the kiddie pool and just like stepping in like it's
It's
barely up to
literally
his ankles.
it's literally maybe 6 inches of water.
Yeah, and then he's just like, SpongeBob, you're not really a lifeguard, are you? I was like, no, Larry. So then like, he just puts him through like a boot camp, and like he has them doing swimming laps. He's like, okay, only 40 laps to go, you guys. And then it just ends with them being like, ah, cramps. And then that's the end of the episode. So there's not really that many gags in this episode, to be honest. I just don't know what it was going for, honestly.
This is, it's almost like it's like the beginning of the end. Sadly.
I mean,
you can say like half of season 3 is good, and like a quarter of season 4 is good. It just gets less and less.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. It's pretty similar to season 1 in that regard. Like season 1 has some great episodes. It also has some meh episodes. That's kind of the same thing with season 3.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one is a bit of a cult favorite. We have Club SpongeBob. Okay.
Yep.
So how would you describe Club SpongeBob?
Let's see. SpongeBob, Patrick have built a treehouse. on top of a single kelp stalk, like really high in the air. And so they're being too loud. Squidward's like, "What's all the ruckus?" And well, they're like, "We're just in the treehouse," and he's like, "Don't make me come in there." And they keep doing whatever, and he eventually says, "I'm coming in," and he pulls the vine down, and he takes a step in, and then the vine snaps or he lets go because he just got in, and it flings them deep into like a giant kelp forest in the middle of nowhere. And so basically, Squidward's panicking, and yeah, that's happening. And Sponge and Patrick are fine because they have this like cult-like mentality that they're going to be okay. It's almost like a religion. They basically worship this. They have something called the magic conch or conch that is basically it's a toy, like a magic 8 ball. You pull a string and it says yes, no, maybe, or
Yeah.
I don't know,
The Magic
or
Conch was the real star of this episode.
or nothing. Yeah, basically. So they're acting like this is their god. It's gonna save them. And Scribbler's like, "Hey, I gotta get out of here." And he like sees light after traveling like a few hundred yards, and he runs through it, and it's just an opening back to where SpongeBob and Patrick are sitting. Because the magic conch shell tells them to do nothing, so they sit there and like in comatose, doing absolutely nothing, like not even blinking. Like the animator saved a lot of money by just not having them do anything. It's just a still shot. So yeah,
Well, as the Magic Conch wanted.
yes, he wanted them to do nothing. Or she, it's a she. I guess it's a female voice. So yeah. Then I mean, Squidward's like, "I'm hungry," and he eats like a beetle. He finds a beetle, he stabs it with a stick and cooks it and eats it.
Yeah.
Or it might have. I think it just jumps off the stick and crawls away.
Yeah, and then it hits him in the hand with the head
with the stick.
Yeah.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Sponge and Patrick are doing nothing, and there's a fire in front of them, and there's an overhead shot of a plane, and I'll explain later. It basically drops like an entire picnic in front of them.
Yep.
Like 100 pounds of food, and they're like, "We're saved," and yeah, the conch has provided and stuff like that. And Squidward's like, "Ah ha ha," and so Squidward's like, "Hey, I'm gonna eat some food," and they're like, "No, you're not. Ask the conch." And so, and then we see like 5 minutes go by, and Squidward's been asking the conch for food, and he keeps saying no, only to Squidward. Yeah, and so then eventually an explorer finds them, and it's like, "All right, I'll get y'all out of here." And I say, "But what is this?" And he looks at the conch, and it's like, "Is that the magic conch?" And it's like, Thunder Patrick say, "Yeah, it is." And it's like, "Sweet, it'll save us." And then it tells them to do nothing, and so they all sit there doing nothing. And then Squidward gives up, and he exclaims, "All hail the magic conch!" And he sits there with them.
Yep.
And that's the end.
Yeah, this is a bit of a weird episode, and it kind of follows a trend in season 3 where like they just explore a bunch of weird, not even themes, just premises. Like SpongeBob and Patrick basically in a lost situation where they're completely stranded in like this giant kelp forest with nothing that they can do, and like they're starving or whatnot, and like they want to escape, and like just the different routes you go on. Like some people they pray or whatever, and like some people just get desperate and
Yeah.
like do whatever they can. That being Squidward, obviously. And do you want to get into the how that gag went with them actually getting the picnic basket?
So it's like a huge jumbo jet, and it goes in and it pans to the two pilots, and it's like, "Man, we're losing air fast. We gotta drop the load." And there's just this big button that says "drop the load" on it, and he just smashes it. It's like a big red button, and then so the cargo hatch opens, and just like you see like an entire table fall out, a picnic blanket, turkey, chocolate, pasta, cake. Like it's like everything.
Yeah.
And then it just falls perfectly into place in front of SpongeBob and Patrick. Like the table lands upright, the blanket lands on top of it, turkey lands on top of the blanket, everything lands on top of the blankets.
Yeah, that was a great scene. And
yeah,
and
it's hard to animate stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think it is an interesting premise, like how they got to the actual like help force. I mean, it's kind of stupid. Like they're as Squidward's trying to get out of the treehouse that's obviously way too cramped to have 3 people in it. So like he's trying to climb down by a vine, and then Like he almost makes it to the ground, he touches the ground, and then the vine snaps and it just
Oh,
slingshots
that's
him.
what he. Oh, he wants to escape. That's right. He tries to leave. He gets in. He deems it too small, and then he takes one step out, and it just lets go.
Yep, sending him into a giant kelp forest where they can never escape, and then they eventually.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And then they eventually meet adventurer Dave. And, you know, he's of no help. He's been stranded in there forever as well. And he's like,
Was his name Dave?
yes, I checked the character list. He's like, did you guys find a way out? And you know, like, he's like, no, obviously. And then like they're like, oh, you have the magic conch, and yeah. And like it really, the magic conch is a make or break for this episode. If you like that element, then you're gonna like this episode. If you don't, you're not gonna like this episode. Personally, like it's kind of meh for me. So it's a meh episode. Or are you a fan of?
It's good gags, in my opinion.
Yeah.
For the limited ones there are.
Yeah. I mean,
I just love like the conch is supposed to be a toy, like a robot kind of thing, but it like whenever it talks to Squidward, it gets like really sassy.
Yeah, that
changes
is funny.
It's like, no. Can I have something to eat? No.
Yeah, and then like the one time it's like, can I have something to eat? Why don't you ask again? Can I have something to eat? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's that episode. Okay. So I'm gonna be honest. I'm not a fan of this next one. I like one gag in it, but that's pretty much the only thing I like in it. So the next episode being.
Oh no, I know what gag you're talking about.
Yeah, the one with the onions. My Pretty Seahorse. I'm curious to see what you think it is.
All right.
So okay, My Pretty Seahorse. So basically, the premise is, you got a children's TV show. You gotta have the main character get a pet at some point, but he's already got Gary, so he's got to get another pet. So he finds a seahorse. I don't remember where, but he finds a seahorse at some point. So yeah, that happens. Oh, that's right. So Squidward has these flowers outside of his house, and SpongeBob, he's, I don't know, looking at Squidward's house or something, probably plotting how to harass Squidward that day, and he sees a seahorse eating the flowers. So he's like, oh, a seahorse, I'm gonna go pet it or something. And like the seahorse is scared and like it runs away. So like SpongeBob, he wants to go hunt down the seahorse, so he does, and like the seahorse comes back and like it starts, like, okay, so SpongeBob like holds up like one of the flowers, and like the seahorse comes back and like it gnaws on the flower or something, and SpongeBob's like, I got him, and like they cut to a montage of like SpongeBob and the seahorse having a ton of fun, and then SpongeBob realizes, oh wait, I have a job, what am I gonna do with the seahorse? So he decides to bring the seahorse to the Krusty Krab. Now he starts by bringing the seahorse, whose name at this point is Mystery, into the Krusty Krab. Mr. Krab's like, no pets allowed, whatever. So SpongeBob brings it out back, and then as he's working, Mystery sneaks into the Krusty Krab, and that's how that goes. She creates some mischief, and like SpongeBob keeps putting orders on what would it be, the order window, I guess, and like obviously waiting for Squidward to take it out to the customer, and like every time before Squidward can get to it, Mystery just eats up all of the Krabby Patties, and like it just keeps happening over and over again, and eventually they get to like a funny gag where like Mr. Krabs is wondering what's going on because like none of the actual customers are getting the food, so like he goes in and like SpongeBob is caring for Misty, not Misty, Mystery. Misty is someone from Pokemon. And SpongeBob's just like, oh, Mystery was starting to get a tummy ache from all the Krabby Patties, so I'm giving her like a tonic or whatever. And like Mr. Krabs like just smacks his head and he's like, take it out. And like he goes through one of his life lessons with SpongeBob, and he's like, you have to know when to let things go. And SpongeBob's like, okay, and he lets Mystery go, and Mystery is running free, and Mr. Krabs is like, look at that, isn't that nice? And she's running free now. She's on her own. And like, I feel like that's where the episode ends. I just want to make sure that's no. Then it cuts back to a scene. I forget where this came from, of Patrick trying to get into a hat store, but he has a wooden plank nailed to his head.
Oh my gosh!
Do you remember where that came from?
That's the episode.
Yeah, apparently. Do you remember what that's a callback from?
Not. I don't even think it's a callback. I think it's just Patrick being stupid, and they needed a side plot.
How do you get a plank on his head, though? let me see if I can find. Oh, there we go. I found it. Okay, so I was just glancing through the synopsis. So apparently, SpongeBob had asked Patrick to build a stable for Mystery at his house, and it does a cut over to Patrick, and like you can see the picture on the synopsis, like him trying to build the stable, and like he's barely even started, and like he has a wooden plank nailed to his head. So that's where that happened. And apparently he's going to the hat store at the end and he can't get in because, he has a wooden plank strapped to his head. So there's that. But that by no means is the funniest gag in this episode. Not by a long shot. So my favorite gag is the onions gag, as I'll call it. And basically how it goes is, so this is supposed to be an emotionally touching episode for the creators, and you're losing your pet forever, basically. You're, like, letting it go. So, like, the creators want to have, like, some touching moments. So, like, they have one scene where Squidward, I believe this is when Squidward's getting ready to, not Squidward, SpongeBob is getting ready to get rid of Mystery for the last time, or, like, Mr. Krabs is asking him to. And it shows Squidward crying, and he's... Okay, I gotta stay composed for this one. So, like, Squidward's crying, and then he looks down, he's like, hey, who the heck put these onions here? And, like, you just see, like, the onion, like, smell lines coming up. Like, it's just so random, because, like, you think, wow, Squidward's actually being emotionally touched by us, and he just looks down, like, there's just a bowl of onions. And then later, like, when SpongeBob actually is getting rid of Missy, or Mystery, whatever, she's not an important enough character to learn her name, apparently. Like, this one fish, like, is crying now, because he's super sad about it, and then it zooms out, and, like, Squidward's pushing the onions in front of him, and he's like, hey!
Oh my gosh.
It might just be me, but I'm a big fan of that.
I honestly, I remember the first part. I don't remember the second part with the pushing. I'm trying to remember.
Go down to the last picture in the, like the picture below the wooden plank one. You'll see it.
I'm on the next episode. I was just reading the synopsis.
Oh, okay, cool.
Sure, don't get anything right. My favorite gag from the episode was when SpongeBob had to tie Mystery to the bike rack.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So she wouldn't get away. And these two surfer dudes come up. And it's like, oh, it's a horsey ride. And then one of them was like, dude, where's the coin slot? And the other, here it is. He gets kicked off camera, and he just flies like 100 yards and explodes. I'm pretty sure he explodes.
Okay, I'm sure he did. And yeah, like that. I forgot about that.
So we hear about, it could be implied where he tried to fit a coin.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's just conclude that episode there before we get into a discussion of where Mystery's coin slot was. So, okay, now we have Just One Bite. Oh, that one. Okay, I was thinking it was a different one. Okay, well, this one's...
It's a pretty good episode.
No, it is. Okay.
So basically, it's SpongeBob and Squidward are having conversation or whatever. It comes up that Squidward has never eaten a Krabby Patty. SpongeBob's like, "What? They're delicious." And Squidward thinks they're putrid and horrible and fattening and they're not good. And SpongeBob's like, "Well, SpongeBob, tells himself he has to do everything in his power to make sure Squidward gets a bite of a Krabby Patty. And so yeah, he basically tries to get Squidward to eat it, and he's like, no. And end of the day, he's like, Squidward, I got one Krabby Patty. It's like now or never, basically. And then he said something about being like brothers but closer.
Yeah, that was great.
That was a good scene. We'll get to that. Don't remember the context. Basically, he convinced Squidward to take a tiny pinch off of the end. And then Squidward said that was the most putrid thing I've ever had. He buries it in the ground. And then SpongeBob's like sad because he's never had someone reject a Krabby Patty before. And he runs home. He's kind of crying and stuff. And Squidward's like making sure he's gone. He digs up the patty and like eats it. He claims it's so delicious, and he has to have more. So the next day at work, he's like trying. He orders patties for himself, but they never make it because I forgot how that works.
So basically, like, SpongeBob keeps thinking that it's an order for the customer, and like he's trying to give it to somebody, and then SpongeBob, when like eventually it's like, okay, nobody ordered this patty, he just tries to throw it away,
and then he eats it.
Yeah,
he eats one, and then the other one is like he burns it because he's like, I can't throw away a Krabby Patty. He just burns it.
Yeah.
And Squidward like eats trash, not thinking the patty's in there. And so yeah, he gives up. He doesn't get a patty that day, and so the next morning he breaks into the patty vault, which is a giant safe filled with just Krabby Patties to the max, which is like a big plot hole because why does SpongeBob make fresh Krabby Patties if they have a whole safe of them? Big
Yeah.
plot hole.
Yeah.
But basically, yeah, he breaks into the patty vault because he knew they were there, and he eats like a lot of them,
He
and then
basically just engorges himself with it.
he eats so many, like hundreds. There's like a 2 minute scene of him just swimming in those. SpongeBob comes in, he's like, "What are you doing here?" And Squidward's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, I always open up, or I'm always on morning shift, or something like that." And then SpongeBob makes this like face, which became a meme. And he's like, "Wait a minute, you like Krabby Patties, don't you, Squidward?" And then Squidward's like, "Yes, I do." And he's like super happy, he keeps eating them, and he's like, "You're eating too many." And then he's like, "What's gonna happen? Am I gonna blow up?" And SpongeBob's like, "No, it'll go straight to your thighs." And then it pans out, and Squidward's like, legs are gigantic, and then you'll blow up, and then Squidward explodes. And so it's his head and like severed limbs in a hospital. And the paramedic's like, "Yeah, I remember my first Krabby Patty." The end.
Yeah, that was a really good episode. Like, obviously, I am a fan of the Squidward episodes. I've said that many times now. But yeah, I just think this is a really good development for him. Like, he's finally getting more attached with his job. Like, him never eating a Krabby Patty before signifies the fact that he didn't have any attachment to his job. Like, he was just coming into work. He didn't really care what he was doing. He was just there to go through the day. He didn't take any pride in what he was doing. He didn't take any interest in like the actual work that he was doing. He didn't associate himself with it at all, and that's in contrast to SpongeBob, who is not a. I'll just say in love with Krabby Patties, and there's a whole episode where like he's going on a date with a Krabby Patty or whatever, and like it's just SpongeBob is like completely emotionally attached to his job. He loves his job. He loves Mr. Krabs. Loves the Krabby Patties. Loves the Krusty Krab. And like in this episode, you really get to see Squidward moving closer to having a connection with his job, and I think that was a really good just character development for him. I'm pretty happy with that. I think it is really funny seeing Squidward just trying to be sneaky and like get a Krabby Patty, and I'm a big fan of that. As a situation where like Squidward's in the Krabby Patty vault and SpongeBob comes in for like the morning shift. That was great. Like this is not the kind of thing normal writers would think of, but yeah, like those SpongeBob writers were always seeing like the humor in like normal situations or just like normal situations in shows and like, hey, how can we surprise the audience? Because that's how you be humorous. You surprise the audience. You take it down an avenue that someone didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's just one bite. Okay, so now we have the bully. Okay, so
But what was I going to say?
oh, did you forget about a gag?
Oh, cringy. I don't. I found it. I don't. I was really cringy part because he buried. Imagine burying a hamburger in sand, and then like dry sand, and then digging it up and eating it. It's so disgusting.
Yeah, I mean it.
And like, and the animators took the time to put sand in his mouth too. It's just,
Oh,
I mean, it shows his love for the Krabby Patty.
yeah, this kind of was a bit of a food porn episode.
Oh gosh, yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what we got next.
Okay,
The
so
bully.
yeah, the bully. Okay, this is a fun one. So I'm a big fan of Flats, the character.
Yes,
He's one of the best tertiary characters in the show. That's just like characters that show up in like one or two episodes compared to secondary characters who are just outside of the main characters. So basically, Flats. I'll start by describing him. So Flats is a new student at SpongeBob's boating school, and like he's who knows why he's there. He isn't really explained, but like he's just somebody that sits next to SpongeBob, and like just immediately it turns out that Flats wants to beat SpongeBob up for no reason, and like SpongeBob wants to get out of class. He doesn't want to be around Flats. He's trying to get advice from Patrick on how to protect himself from Flats. And Patrick, it turns out, is old college roommates with Flats, which it was an awesome touch, by the way. Like, especially for adults, like, just, yeah, like, he was like, hey, is this the pizza man? I'll get into the gag later, but, yeah, that was an awesome moment. And then, like, he's trying to get help from Mr. Krabs. Mr. Krabs is, unhelpful, just like he is in the Strangler episode. And, yeah, like, SpongeBob eventually just stays at home. He doesn't want to be with Flats. He doesn't want to be around him, whatever. And like Flats eventually hunts him down to his home, and like he comes in and he's like, SpongeBob, I'm ready to beat you up. And like SpongeBob's like, okay, can I put a blindfold on? And he does. And then Flats like gears up. He's getting ready to beat SpongeBob up. And it turns out that SpongeBob's a sponge, as we all know. So like Flats, him punching him doesn't actually do anything, and like, it just goes straight through him, and like you just see SpongeBob's like, like he, or what's the word for it? He like he absorbs the punches, but like
Yes,
he also like it just comes out of his back.
Yeah, he absorbs it in its entirety. He like I'm thinking of the word.
It just goes through him. Let's say
he
that.
negates it. Yeah, he just absorbs it. It like his body malleaves with the
Yeah,
punch.
yeah. There we go. Yeah, like his body just molds
And it
around the
also
punch.
tickles him.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. So like then they just go to a montage of Flats continually punching him, trying to eventually break him, wear him down, and it doesn't work.
Throughout an entire day.
Yep, for the entire day, and eventually they end up back at the boating school, and Flats eventually just passes out due to exhaustion. And Mrs. Puff walks in and she sees the scene and she thinks SpongeBob beat Mr. Flats up, and then it's just like, SpongeBob, I'm gonna beat you up now. So obviously it's a pretty anticlimactic ending.
SpongeBob, I'm going to kick your butt.
Yep.
That was running gag. Kick your butt. Flats said he's gonna kick his butt.
Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna go through some of the gags here because there's a lot of them. So okay, the first one I want to talk about is one of Flat's attempts to chase down SpongeBob. So he's driving in a car because apparently he has a license even though he's in boating school or whatever. So like he's in like a truck and he's chasing SpongeBob and SpongeBob's in a trash can because he was trying to hide from Flats in an alley. So like he's running away and like Flats is chasing him down. He's like, and like a banana peel flies out of the trash can and Flats is like, oh
no! Oh my gosh!
And then like he runs over the banana peel and like the truck flips over and like Flats ends up in the hospital. And like SpongeBob is greeting Flats there, and he's like, "Hey, Flats, how you doing?" And like Flats is like finally waking up. He's like, "Oh, what happened?" And like the doctor comes in, he explains the situation. And he's like, "Wow, I'm really glad that you were there, SpongeBob. Thanks. I'm still gonna beat you up though."
What did he do? He gave him like CPR for like 45 minutes.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah, and then Flats is still like, "I'm gonna beat you up," and SpongeBob just freaks out and runs away again.
Yeah, he's like, I'll be sure to remember this when I'm kicking your butt.
Yeah, and oh wait, and right before SpongeBob runs away and Flats notices something in SpongeBob's hand, he's like, "Ooh, are those flowers for me?" And then SpongeBob just runs away. So that was a great one, and then also there's a great scene where I forgot about this one. So there's Patrick with the whole college roommate thing. I'll get into that one first, actually, because I teased that earlier. So SpongeBob, that's the first person he calls. So he's in the school and he's super worried about getting beat up. So like he calls Patrick. He's like, "Patrick, you're the toughest guy I know." And like Patrick's like, "Hello, hey Marcos, I'll get a pepperoni with and like meatballs and onions on it." And he's like, "Who the heck is Marcos?" And Patrick's like,
or was it Mario?
"Oh yeah, Mario, yeah." He's like, "Is this Pizza Castle?" SpongeBob's like, "No, it's me. I'm getting beat up by Flats and I need help." And he's like, and Patrick is just talking to someone off screen. He's like, yeah, I know. He says someone's coming to beat him up." "Oh, sorry, SpongeBob. I was talking to my old college roommate, Flats. Yeah, me and him go long back." So what were you saying, SpongeBob, about someone trying to beat you up? And then the line goes dead. Then Patrick's just like,
you see the phone drop because SpongeBob is printed away.
Yeah, and then Patrick just finishes it with, "Hey, is this Pizza Castle?" So that was great. And then there's one other thing where SpongeBob is trying to call one other person to try and get some last help. He's running out of the school and like he runs into Flats' dad, and he's like, "Oh great, you're Mr. Flats, aren't you?" And he's like, "Well, yes I am." He's like, "Well, your son wants to beat me up, and is there anything you can do?" And like then he sees Mr. Flats sees Flats over SpongeBob's shoulder, and he's like, he kind of wants to beat me up too. And like it's just it turns out that like his dad is terrified of his son as well, and SpongeBob just runs off. So yeah, I'm a fan of this episode because it gets into school dynamics again, which I don't like because it's boating school. You don't need to make it like an actual school, but like it stays away from that a little bit because we all have like bullying is like not just a school thing; it's an everyday thing. Like it happens for people, whatever, and yeah, like it's just interesting seeing how SpongeBob deals with it, and like they turn it into a funny situation, and Yeah, I mean it's a solid episode.
You missed the big gag.
Oh, I
I don't
did.
know, or you just didn't bring it up. Just I mean, this was my favorite gag of it, other than flowers for me was a pretty good add-in. That was a good add-in. Just the classic when he's Flats is either in the truck or just chasing him on foot. And he was chasing him in the truck through the city, and SpongeBob says, "Get out of the way! Can't you see he's gonna kick my butt?" And this happens
I
like
missed that. Yeah.
2 or 3 times, and it's like the way he points is like pointed at this old man. He's like, "Well, howdy, everyone."
Yeah, like they all think he's a
And the
pedophile.
whole town is like, "So you like kicking butts, huh? We'll show you, old man." And they literally just proceed to beat an old man off camera.
And
And it's the second time that's better. And it's like, how many times we gotta teach you this how many times we gotta teach you this lesson, old man? And the old man says, "I love the city folk,"
yeah, I'm trying to find
which
this.
is like weird. It's like he enjoys being beat. And it's like, oh my gosh.
It's a strange scene. I'm trying to find where he's. Okay, yeah. So I guess he said that. Okay. Yeah, I didn't remember that he said the city folk thing. Okay. Yeah, this I like this episode so far. It's definitely
How many
been
times have you just listen to me?
definitely
Oh,
been the best one so
I
far.
love the young people.
Yeah. Okay. So this next episode was the one I thought we were talking about for just one bite, and I'm actually a really big fan of this episode, Nasty Patty. So you better do justice to it.
You like this one?
Yeah, I mean I'm a big fan.
Ooh. I don't remember it.
Oh, I'll just take it then. You can just do the next one.
Okay,
Okay.
if you're fine with that.
Yeah. No, I'm.
I would just have to take some time to read it.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna make you do that. So, okay, in the Nasty Patty, the biggest thing you need to know about this one is the show is really going for like an actual horror theme here. Like it wants like a noir episode where like it's part mystery, part dark, and like just throwing the gags in where they can. So basically, the premise here is the Krusty Krab has a food inspector coming in, and it's a stressful experience for Mr. Krabs, so he's super nervous about it the entire time. And like the food critic is being super snotty about it because when people are in power, they get really abusive of their power. And like he's like, "Oh, you like, oh, this isn't that good." And Mr. Krabs is like, "Hey, SpongeBob, we should really teach that guy a lesson. We should give him this patty." Like they make like the nastiest patty they can think of.
It's so nasty.
Yeah, it's just disgusting. And like they bring it out to him, and like right before he eats the patty, like a fly flies down his throat, and like yeah, he just starts choking on the fly. First of all, they're underwater. There's no flies, but that's beside the point. So he starts choking on the fly. He hasn't eaten the patty yet. Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob think that he ate the patty, and they just start wailing on the guy and like laughing at him as hard as they can. Like, look at him choke and suffer. And like they actually
Oh god.
they say stuff like that. And like,
Yeah, it's so dark.
hey, look at him flop on the table. Look at him, he's turning green. And like they literally say this stuff. I almost want to go to the transcript and
No, yeah,
hunt it
they
down.
say that's what they say. And he passes out due to lack of air.
Yeah, and okay, I'm reading right now. I see why they originally didn't like him. So Mr. Krabs didn't like that he gets free food. So yeah, that's a pretty horrible reason. So eventually the police arrive because like somebody just passed out and supposedly died. So like that's what they think, and the police arrive and like they're trying to figure out what the heck happened. And like then oh, that's right. So this is why they originally tried to hurt the guy. Like yes, the free food thing, but there was something else. Oh no, it wasn't the free food thing. So I got this completely wrong. So apparently they have a TV in the Krusty Krab. Who knew? And like there's a TV report going on as the food critic is in there.
Oh,
And
the fake health inspector.
yes, like there's a fake health inspector going around, and like he's impersonating a health inspector to get free food, and Mr. Krabs wants to teach that guy a lesson. And by the end of that, they like put up a mugshot of the guy after Mr. Krabs has already given him the nasty patty, and he's like, "Oh crap, this isn't the guy. This is just a normal health inspector." And then the police arrive, and like they're trying to figure out what's going on, and like SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs are super nervous the entire time. And then after the investigation concludes for the day, SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs are like, "We have to dispose of the body." So like that, then it gets into like an awesome scene of them like going out back and like stuffing the body in Mr. Krabs' trunk, and like just it has like the best music during it. Like I can't do it justice. If you want to hear it, watch this episode. It is great, and like they're trying to sneak away with the body, and like they have like ski masks on, and then like the police like just turn on the flashlights, and they're like, "Hey, where are you guys going at this time of night?" And like then they start cracking, and then what happens after that?
I think they got away. Yeah, I think they got away though.
Oh, okay, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so like I think they were going to bury, and like they were driving away with the body, and then they were going to bury it somewhere. Yeah, that's what happened. So they were going to bury it somewhere, and like they take the body out and they start digging a hole for it, and like they're getting ready to bury it, and then the police shine the light on them, like, "What are you guys doing out here?" And then like yeah, Mr. Krabs just like we have to. I don't remember his excuse, but it had something to do with ice, I think. Maybe. Like I don't know.
I don't know either.
Let me here. I'll just read the transcript at this point because I don't want to screw up this ending. So the officers are then called through their walkie-talkies and receive a report about two people burying a body on the hill. Obviously, SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs with the inspector. But as they are about to leave, the officer wants a soda, which Mr. Krabs quickly hands over. So I guess they're still at the Krusty Krab at this point. Dang, I really messed that up. But then the officer wants ice as well, and Mr. Krabs grows really nervous, which only makes the officer nearly march into the freezer. But because I guess they have the body in the freezer. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so I was missing a lot of details here. Okay, Mr. Krabs, nervous beyond definition, barricades the door and barrels excuses about the ice. The officer simply shoves him aside and is about to get the ice herself when they confess their crimes. Okay, so they start blackmailing each other, it looks like, and they say that the body's in the freezer, and she looks in there and there's no body in there, so she thinks they're joking or something, and like that he's a zombie. And because the not the inspector, the health inspector apparently woke up and he just starts walking around because he's not actually dead. And then like they think it's an actual zombie, the police. So like zombie, and then like they start beating the police and
Oh
the
yeah, they
health
hit him on the
inspector.
head with the nightstick, and he gets knocked out again.
Yeah, which is super dark as well. Like you have this guy who's like been unconscious for like a day, and like he just wakes up and he's trying to survive. Like he's just getting beat by the police officer. Like he's like Rodney King or something.
Oh gosh.
Ooh, that was a deep cut. And
Oh gosh. Oh.
and yeah, like eventually it ends with him being like, "Okay, guys, here's your review," and like he just gives them a passing grades. And they grade, and then the police officer and Mr. Krabs just start laughing, and then the episode ends. So
Yeah. Basically,
did I miss any gags?
I don't think so. You didn't miss anything.
Yeah. So what I like about this episode, as I said, it's a noir episode, so it's mystery and it's dark, and it's horror. And like I really like it when children's TV goes dark, but like it doesn't go like dark to the point of like, oh, this is uncomfortable. Why am I watching this? It's like, ooh, this is a different take on like these characters. I like it. Like SpongeBob is maniacally laughing at this guy getting hurt. That's different. And like the police officers, whenever they come into the show, they're always a great addition. And like that includes this episode. Like they're just trying to get their eyes.
They're usually pretty smart.
Yeah.
If not always, and they're also incredibly sarcastic and like snarky.
Yeah. No, this is just a fun episode. And if you want a SpongeBob episode that just is different than any other one that you're gonna watch, then the Nasty Patty is a good one for you. Okay. So I'll let you take the next one since I stole this from you.
Let's see. Oh, Idiot Box. I've seen this I remember this. Alright, so Squidward's coming home, or he's home, and he sees SpongeBob has purchased a huge television, like a 60-inch, and he's like, oh my gosh. And then he sees it throw it in the trash can immediately, and he keeps the box, and he's like, what are they doing? And then he sees SpongeBob and Patrick go into the box, and he's like, what are they doing still? And then I think he goes to SpongeBob and asks, we can have the TV? He's like, sure. So he's watching TV on the big screen, and then he hears like these movie sound effects. Like he'll hear like a space shuttle launch, and he'll look, and it's like coming from the box, and he's like, what the heck is that? And he goes to the box, and he's like, what are you two doing in here? And it's SpongeBob and Patrick in the box, and I mean, there's nothing in there, no props, no recorders or anything. He's like, we're using our imagination, and SpongeBob makes a rainbow over his head. It's like a random effect. And you see that happen like a couple more times.
Yeah.
And sometimes he claims like, okay, hand over the tape recorder, and it's like there is no tape recorder. We're just having a robot pirate space battle, and I believe that's like an actual line, at least a robot pirate battle. And he's like, whatever. And Squidward tries to get his mind off the box, but all the every channel on the TV is just about a box somehow. You see
Oh yeah,
that?
and there was like boxing, and like they had the box channel.
Oh my gosh, boxing, and it was actually two boxes in a ring running
Yeah,
into each other.
and like Squidward acknowledges that too, and that's one of my favorite things in TV shows when the characters acknowledge the jokes, and he's like, "Ooh, this is kind of exciting, actually." And then that's before he realized it was actual boxes, and he's like, "Oh, dang it."
That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I believe at night, SpongeBob and Patrick are in bed, and Squidward goes in the box, and he pretends he's revving a car. It doesn't work at first, but then he like shifts a gear, and he hears a gear shift, and he starts driving, and like the whole box is moving and shaking. He's like, "Oh, this is amazing!" But what's actually happening is the garbage truck is picking up the box and taking it to the dump.
Yep.
So he's eventually poured into a landfill, and then just like he lands face first in the pie.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the pie.
Which is I guess it's a callback to Dying for Pie.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, and while the garbage truck was taken away, SpongeBob was like, "Oh, Squidward's finally enjoying the box and using his imagination," but he actually wasn't.
No, not at all.
Oh, and then I read this in the synopsis. The end. Squidward's on the dump. SpongeBob and Patrick decide to go to his house, Squidward's house, to see how he is. Probably talking about the box, and then Patrick says, "Oh, I hope he's not too down in the dumps today."
Yeah, that's right.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a good joke.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and obviously, speaking of classic, that whole imagination meme, that's one of, if you ask someone who hasn't watched SpongeBob, like, what are one of the most SpongeBob-y things they can think of, it's going to be imagination.
Yeah, it's an older meme, though, clearly. It's like 2013, but, it was very popular.
Yeah. And it's just a fun episode, really. It's a nice premise, and you got
it's Squidward focused, not the Squidward developmental episode.
Yeah, and I'm a really big fan of that boxing joke. That was good.
Box.
And honestly, that's one of my first tests for any new show that I'm starting. It's like, do the characters acknowledge the jokes that are happening? Like if the jokes are happening to the character,
go along with it.
Yeah, you got it kind of is like a meta thing, but it's really not. It's just like a self-aware thing. Like the characters are part of the action instead of the characters have the actions happening to them. And that's just a thing that I value in shows. So yeah. Okay, so that's the idiot box. All right, so next one we have Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 4. Okay, so crap, I don't remember this at all. Let's see which one is this. Is this Wombo? Yeah, this is Wombo. Okay.
Oh, you mean Wombo?
Yes, Wombo. Sorry.
Ooh.
Sorry, I hope I didn't offend you there. Okay, so...
Also, I have how long do you think we're going to? Like 8:15?
Yeah, probably. I was going to go until... let's see, we have Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 4, then Doing Time, Snowball Effect, One Crab's Trash, and That's Seen on TV. I was going to stop after that. Should we... Let's just stop after Doing Time, actually, so we can, do...
That wraps up that episode 45. Okay.
Yeah, let's just do that. Okay, so final 2 episodes, guys, and then I guess we're going to do a trilogy of these. Okay, so... Yep. I guess I got started. So, let's see how this starts. So, okay, Man and Barnacle Boy got a crusted crab, yeah, yada yada yada. SpongeBob is excited, wants to get through a steel door, crashes into it, and leaves an imprint. Okay, so essentially the central thing in this episode is Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy's utility belt, which apparently has a bunch of different things that it can control, and it has a bunch of superpowers that it gives them. And one of the biggest things that it has on it, controlled by the big M on it, is the shrink ray. And I almost feel like Man Ray also has a shrink ray, but whatever. Like there's a shrink ray. You do it by like flexing your pelvis or something. I don't know. And like that, then it just shrinks somebody that's in front of you. And like SpongeBob obviously wants to try that out. He wants the actual utility belt. So how does he get it? Let's see. Da, 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 da. I don't know. Maybe he stole it off of him. It doesn't really matter. So like SpongeBob gets the belt and he's super intimidated at first because he looks down at it and like they do a really cool shot where it looks like this incredibly advanced piece of technology and like he's like, oh my god, what am I holding? So like he has no clue how to control it at all and like he just starts messing with it and like it just starts doing a bunch of crazy things to Squidward and then eventually it turns it back to normal and then it just shrinks him. So like SpongeBob at first is like, ooh, tiny Squidward, and then like he's concerned because he doesn't know how to fix Squidward. So he goes to the only person he can expect to have a solution to his problem, Patrick. So he goes to Patrick, and Patrick at first thinks it's a Squidward action figure. So he starts playing with Squidward, and he's like, look at him go, and he starts moving him around in the air. He's like, woo, woo. He pretends he's like a like has a gun at some point. He's like, like he starts pretending that he's shooting someone with it. And like he has Squidward crash, and obviously that hurts Squidward. And then when SpongeBob actually wants a solution, Patrick's like, oh, you could just turn the M upside down, and that turns it into Wombo, and Wombo will make him bigger. And then like SpongeBob thinks that Patrick just made up that word, and he's like, no, SpongeBob, it's a real word. Didn't you learn that in school? And, like whatever. And like that becomes a whole joke on itself. But yeah, and it survives way past this episode. But yeah, SpongeBob tries it, and then obviously that doesn't work. And I think he shrinks Patrick as well in the process. So yeah, that's what happens with Wumbo. So don't do Wumbo, guys. And yeah, after that, SpongeBob now has two people that he has to get fixed. So he just starts, I don't know, going crazy and shrinking everyone in Bikini Bottom because he's like, does anyone know how to fix this belt? And like, then he just shrinks them for some reason, and he just keeps doing that over and over. And that kind of it becomes like a theme in like these kinds of episodes where he just has a problem and then he just brings the problem to everyone else. You think of like an episode like Hall Monitor where he's just rampaging around
Yeah.
the city. It's the same idea. So like he does that and like eventually he has like an entire city in front of him and they just scream out, just tell him how to unshrink us when he eventually goes to Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy to get help. Because, like he has their belt. He doesn't want to go talk to them and be like, guys, I have your belt and I just made a huge mess out of things. I don't know how Mermaid Man didn't notice because like by the time that happened, like his pants were down around his knees. But whatever. So Mermaid Man wants to help SpongeBob, and obviously he has like Alzheimer's or something or dementia, whatever, and like doesn't remember how to actually fix it. So he's like, SpongeBob, did you try Wumbo? And yeah, that didn't work.
Gosh.
So SpongeBob has them all the people in the city in a jar, and like they all pop out of the jar, and they're like, "Get SpongeBob!" and they all start beating him up and whatever. And then everyone just takes a belt and they shrink SpongeBob too. And at this point, everything in Bikini Bottom is shrunk. So they just decide, hey, if everything is moved down in scale, does it matter if everything is smaller? So that's basically how the episode resolves itself. It's just, hooray, well, everything may be smaller, but doesn't matter. Not really. Kind of existential if you think about it, but not really. It's just a funny climax to.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Does that mean they're tiny, like in every other episode we see after?
I don't think the writers care to keep up that plot point, but maybe.
Watch them. No, watch it. One episode they're gonna pan out and it's like they're actually really small. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, well, maybe in like a season 10 episode. Like, oh my god, remember the season 3 episode? I was listening to Ryan Morett's podcast, and apparently we have a great plot point that everyone is tiny in this universe. The critics are going to love this one.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, so yeah, that's this one. We already talked about Wumbo, so you got the main gag. And yeah, that's Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 4.
I think, that was it. Wombology, the study of Wumbo. It's first grade, SpongeBob.
Indeed.
That's classic. Alright, so what is this? Doing time. Ah, yes. Alright, I caught up on the plot.
Great.
During your thorough explanation. Good job with that.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, we all know SpongeBob's a bad driver, and Mrs. Puff has to be his teacher to make him a better student. And so, During a driving test, SpongeBob veers off the path and basically drives into the city, and he runs straight through he flies off a cliff, and he hits a fruit punch truck that explodes all over the city, makes everything purple. The cops arrive, and they, she thought they were going to arrest SpongeBob, but they actually arrested her for negligence.
Negligible bounds.
Negligence.
Yeah.
Okay. And then she goes to prison, and she's like, prison sucks, but, SpongeBob's not here, so I'm going to try to enjoy myself. And she does start to enjoy herself. She makes friends with an inmate who always asking, what's for dinner?
Yeah. What's the Hubble Puff?
What's the Hubble Puff? Yeah, I remember that. So, and SpongeBob and Patrick want to bust her out because SpongeBob feels guilty. So they start basically it's like a whole 7-minute session of basically they're breaking in some kind of costume or sneaking in somehow, and then Puff calls the guards, and the guards are kind of dumb and they think she's hallucinating, or it's like the dumb part, they're on like a conveyor belt line.
Yeah, conveyor belt.
Conveyor belt, yeah, sorry. And the guard's like, these are just raw materials.
Yeah, that was great.
And she's saying, there's a crazed ex-student of mine and his overweight friend here to break me out.
Yeah.
That's
I see that caption, yeah.
And then she's like, they're just raw materials, and then the guard like just stamps them with the anvil.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, I love the line. I actually remember this. They buy rock costumes, and so Mrs. Puff hears them talking to her, and she's like, guards, they're trying to break me out. And it's like 2 rocks, and he's like, you're hallucinating. And then another inmate comes and breaks the rocks, and SpongeBob says, well, there goes the deposits on the costume.
That's pretty good.
That's funny. So basically, eventually, Puff's basically put in the equivalent of an asylum. She's put in this room that's all white, and she's so crazy that it turns to sponge. SpongeBob's all around her laughing at her, and then she wakes up. She realizes it's a dream. However, she wakes up in the boat, so she's about to crash again. So she crashes, and actually SpongeBob gets arrested, but the cop's like, yeah, because you already served your time, and she looks down, she's actually in a jail costume. So she screams again, and she wakes up again, and then she's flying off the cliff again, and she sees the driver in SpongeBob, but it's Donna, the inmate, and she says, what's the Hubble Puff? She screams again, and she wakes up, and then she's flying off the cliff again, and she says, oh, forget it, and just like puts her hand on her cheek and like is like, whatever, boredly sits in the boat, and it fades to black.
Yeah, this is a fun episode. Like,
kind of weird, like a little kind of Groundhog Day kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know what Groundhog Day is.
Yeah, that's a good comparison actually. I'm trying to find the episode from season 4 that I'm thinking of that's super similar to this one, where like she keeps crashing into like the nursery home, and like there's that one guy with the that was writing the manuscript in red ink, and like it just gets soiled.
I remember that. That's funny.
Yeah, I can't find it, but this episode was very similar to that one.
This is a good episode. I've only seen it a couple times.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to rewatch that one as well, along with the algae's always greener. And yeah, like it's always funny because like Donna, along with what's the Hubble Puff, is like, hey, we eating chili tonight? Like this is fun because like you don't get to see Mrs. Puff like socializing or whatever.
We eating chili. Yeah, good old Donna.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna leave it off here because Bailey and I have to go eat dinner. It's like 8:10, and we planned on like 3 hours. We're just short of 3 hours now, but we're hungry, so whatever, suck it. And we'll be back in like
oh my gosh.
We'll be back in a week and a half.
Our audience.
Hey, they can take it. They're strong.
I hope they can take it.
Yeah, so we'll be back in a week and a half to finish our discussion of SpongeBob finally, so Bailey and I can talk about something different. That'll be nice. And who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you guys enjoyed listening to the podcast as much as we enjoyed talking in it, make sure to give us a review on iTunes. That'd be great. Give us a comment on YouTube. Our YouTube page is Topical, Rationalizing the Monkey Brain. Bailey, make sure you go listen to those past episodes. I bet you don't know some of the people I've had on. It's been really fun. We got like
I'll take a look.
Yeah, we've got like 26 at this point.
Well, I thought you said you didn't upload to iTunes.
Oh no, I didn't. But they don't know that.
But you said, well, they do now. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, make sure to if you like the podcast, subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this on iTunes, then it must be on iTunes. So give us
Somehow.
a 5-star review because we finally got it up there. That'll make me feel good about.
I want to see us in the featured podcast next to Joe Rogan.
Oh, we gotta have a Joe Rogan discussion at some point. That is one of my favorite podcasts. But you know what? That's for another time, and we'll see you then.
All right, see y'all.